Hey everyone, welcome to an episode of Backlog Crew. We are collectively Press A to talk, and today we're talking about Undertale. I think if I had to guess, I would have always guessed that Joseph would have probably been leading this, but I suggested it as a rebound from our failed attempt at playing Knights of the Old Republic, so I get to lead it instead. Joined here today with Kurt,
Hello.
Joseph,
Hey.
and the invisible, illustrious, enigmatic John. I don't care if that's
Hello.
still counts as alliteration in my book.
He's also not invisible for the audience.
What?
Oh, really?
I don't know what you're
Yeah, he's
talking
magic.
about.
Oh, invisible for me. Well, like I said, today we're going to be talking about Undertale. I think typically we like to start with a little bit of background about this game. I feel like it's kind of maybe a lost cause talking about it because it's just achieved such a cult status at this point. But there are some things that I learned as far as research from this. I'm not going to go too much into trivia because I think anyone could find this pretty easily. But this game was created almost entirely by Toby Fox, who was the creator, composer, writer, developer, director, etc., etc., etc. of this game. Extremely talented guy. It's crazy to me that games of this quality, this dense, are being made by individuals at this point, which I think is not only a testament to, I guess, the talent of someone like Toby, but also I guess the fact that the internet allows for such interconnectivity at this point. Back 10 years ago, this probably wouldn't have been possible because the software wasn't there, and the I guess just the ability to share your work through things like YouTube, Reddit, Twitter, whatever it may be, didn't exist to kind of create this cultural zeitgeist that this game really, took over around 2015. Like I said, Toby was the writer, developer, director of this. Development actually began in 2013 on this game. It was crowdsourced through something that I think John is very, very familiar with, and that is Kickstarter. I'm not going to bully him regarding his relationship with Kickstarter, but
it's great. It's my savings account.
So he actually asked Toby Fox for $5,000 to work on the development of this game, which is just kind of crazy to me to think about $5,000. I have no clue the extent to which that money was going to help out, whether it be with just paying his normal bills, rent, food, utilities, or maybe it was just developing the game by software. I don't know. But he ended up getting a little over $50,000 instead, which is still crazy to me to think that 2 years before this game was published, he received $50,000 to develop an entire game by himself. It's a short game, but it's a very densely packed game. And again, just the cultural phenomenon that it became just 2 years after development started, a very short development time of 32 months. It's just, again, crazy to me to think that $52,000 roughly went into this. And the product that we got is it's pretty astounding. The game itself has RPG elements, as well as a combat system that's kind of weird mix of turn-based combat and bullet hell elements as well. It's a very, very weird mix of gameplay, but I think ultimately it works in its own weird way. Maybe it's a almost satire of multiple genres. We can get into that a little bit more later. This game ultimately was released September 15th of 2015, excuse me, to pretty much universal acclaim. I think it's meteoric. Its rise to just, again, the zeitgeist. I really don't know any better way to say it. I heard about it everywhere from tons of different people. Anywhere I looked online, I was seeing references to it in other video games, just pop culture in general. And even though I didn't play this game until now, I know I was introduced to it in 2015. I couldn't tell you the exact month, but I remember it was 2015. I was introduced to it by Joseph, who, as far as I can remember, is the first person I know who knew about this game, the first person who played this game. So I'm going to stop talking about my experience with the game and pass it over to Joseph to tell the group, I guess, how you heard about the game. Maybe your first thoughts about it. What was your experience with the game? Because, like I said, I think you experienced it fairly early on in this cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, I was exposed to it in 2015 when it came out by another friend of mine from high school who told me essentially just, hey, play this game, don't learn anything about it. So I just ended up buying it because I think it was only $10 at the time on Steam, and I just ended up playing it because I didn't want to play something like The Witcher 3 that came out at the same time. And
Which I did not jump on that bandwagon until like 2 years later. So that was not me.
Yeah, so I ended up playing it once, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And then, we'll get to later how the game kind of pushes you to play it again and experience things differently as you go through it. But the wave that Undertale was able to hit the masses with, especially through things like Tumblr, it really took off in the ways of like fan art and like fan alternate universes. The way that the fans just like took off with all the characters and making their own fan fictions and everything, and it was just like this huge cultural phenomena that just swept over people who were doing a whole bunch of specifically fan stuff because people related to all these characters so much and fell in love with all these characters so hard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know where we want to take this. Do we want to start talking about like everybody's experiences with the runs, or
so
how do you want to do it?
I think before we jump into that, I was going to say that I think that's talking about everyone's interest in maybe drawing characters, people becoming obsessed with certain characters and developing personalities for them in their own art outside of the game itself is a testament to, again, his just how well this game was written. I think that in my own research, that was one of the things that Toby Fox wanted to do, was present characters that an emotional story that fell outside of what was considered normal for video games at the time. And I can really feel that playing this game. It's very, very interesting to me that for as short of a time as you spend with some of these characters, they leave such an impression on you, not necessarily in like any true emotional way for a lot of them, but just the amount of laughs that I feel, or just the zany personalities you experience throughout. And that's one of the big things he really pushed for in the development of it. Before we go much further, I do want to ask Kurt and John how they first came to hear about this game and what they knew about it before they played it.
So I also played this game in 2015, around when it came out. I saw the reaction to it from the internet, and I actually started watching a Let's Play of the first like 30 minutes, and then I was like, I want to play this, and I stopped. So I did know a little bit of it. I mean, I guess it's not a spoiler since we're going to be talking about it in just a second, but the fact that it's an RPG where it gives you the option to fight monsters in a traditional way, but it isn't required, and you can usually talk your way out of things and show mercy. So I knew that was a mechanic. I think it would have been a more interesting experience if I didn't know that going in. But I did know that was a mechanic, and I was still blown away by the game when I played it almost a decade ago.
Gotcha.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
I know.
No,
Yeah,
that
you said 10 years ago a game like this couldn't have been made, and I was like,
Well,
I'm still living in like at least 2018.
Yeah, I
So
get it.
rewinding that statement, let's say like 15 to 17 years ago, which is an even weirder statement to say. I feel like that would have been this would have been a harder project to at least reach the type of stardom it did.
Yeah.
John, how about you? What's your experience with this?
my introduction to this game was a group chat we had going that said we needed to pick another game for a backlog crew. And then Ryder recommended Undertale. And then I went to the Steam page and bought it.
Had you never heard of it before then?
Like, I'd heard the name. I've never seen any gameplay for it. And
That's
then
awesome.
the skeleton I seen in some memes
Yeah.
on Reddit or something. That's the bulk of my knowledge of this game until I played it. So
Ryder,
Like almost rare to be at this point and not have seen anything about Undertale aside from like Sans.
it's like talking
Yeah.
to somebody and they're like, "Yeah, I don't even know what Game of Thrones is."
yeah, Ryder,
You're right for it.
you were worried you were being like hyperbolic in your language describing like how big this game was for a while, but I mean, it was talked about by like actual news outlets, like games reviews all over the place. Even though it was an indie game made by a super small team, it was also talked about on just random forums by kids. I student talked in like 2019, so almost 5 years after the game came out, and I had kids whose entire personality was, "Haha, I'm Samus from Undertale, and I can play Megalovania on the xylophone. Look at me!" And like, it's just crazy that a game like that extends to like quote unquote hardcore like games press, and then also to kids who were too young to make a purchase on Steam without parents' permission when it came out.
Yeah,
I
and you
was
think
actually
about
at
like I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Or I was gonna say Matt Pat from Game Theory had an opportunity to meet the Pope a few years ago, and he gave him a copy of Undertale because he thought it was such a big deal and such a, I guess, representation at the time of what he was doing or what the gaming community was like at the time.
And not too long either before or after that, like a circus troupe came and they did like a juggling act to the tune Megalovania, which is like the most popular thing from this most popular song from the game. And it's just weird that it happened twice.
hmm
Like the Pope's got to play Undertale now. I think that's like divine
Maybe.
intervention or something.
You know what's funny is I have a work playlist that I put music to focus to, and apparently one of the songs is from Undertale, and I didn't know that until I played the game. So that was kind of funny. Hope streams and saving the world.
hmm
I was at a on my honeymoon, and we were watching they had live music like all over the ship. One night, there's like an atrium area, the center of the ship, and there's like a jazz band playing. And they're all taking turns improvising, and this one like saxophone player took over, and he was playing. It was like pretty smooth jazz. Like, I mean, just nothing really stood out in particular music that I recognized. But as he's playing, he's like, "Burr, burr, 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 burr," and I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" And of course, like no one else like realizes, and I was like looking around, like, no, maybe I imagined it. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of those things where like it was too much of a coincidence, and I'm going to tell myself that no, that is the cultural impact. People sneaking in, into their improv sections of music, Metroidvania. But going forward from that, so I guess my own experience with this, like I said, was really Joseph introducing it to me. I didn't play it prior to this month. It was just kind of crazy to me. I think ultimately I was avoiding it because one, I didn't want to be disappointed by it, and two, what I knew a lot about it, and the elements that I knew about were cool, but I was afraid of the gameplay itself really wouldn't be for me, and I wouldn't enjoy it. But getting the game started, I was pleasantly surprised already, despite the fact that I'd already seen some of these things. You're greeted with an introduction explaining Undertale's and war between humans and monsters. One of the first things I noticed was the music, which I've heard over and over and over again about how good the music was. I think that Toby Fox was brought in to compose some music on Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah, he did the raid music, some of the raid music.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, so I'll just say it, take your word for it, and that it's probably good. I hope. But that was one of the first things that I was like, hey, this music's kind of good.
Yeah.
Color palettes that you're immediately presented with are muted, but beautiful. They work so well, and they're super reminiscent of the like NES era of games, and it's kind of comforting and nostalgic to me, even though I grew up in, I guess, PS1, PS2 era of dominance of video games. I owned a SNES and an NES, and I played them probably more frequently than I did what would be considered modern consoles at the time. So even though I'm playing this in 2023, I felt some type of, like I said, nostalgia to an earlier time, and I think that was Toby's intention with a lot of this, was to kind of emulate maybe games from the past.
I think he pulled a lot from like Earthbound's style and art.
Yeah,
I know he actually
Earthbound
worked on
in particular.
mods for Earthbound.
Yeah,
Correct.
Or ROM hacks rather. something along those lines.
He had one in particular really successful ROM hack of Earthbound that was kind of what got him started into making his own game. And he pulled a lot of assets from his own ROM hack of Earthbound.
So, like, I guess just really early on, we've already talked a little bit about, kind of our experience with who did or didn't know anything about it. Kurt and I already knew some about it going into it. Joseph and John really didn't know anything. Was this intro of the game already, was it different than you were expecting? I guess, Joseph, you specifically, since you knew nothing about it at the time, were you expecting to see something like this that again was reminiscent of this, era of video games 30 years past?
I mean, the only thing I had known about it at the time was like what I saw on the Steam page before I started playing the game. So I had no idea what really to expect going into it. I didn't even know that it was a kind of game where you could choose whether to, not fight or fight people. In fact, there was like at the very beginning there were particular characters that were like telling me, "Hey, you can, not kill people," and then I was like, "I don't trust that. I don't think that's what this game's about." And I just had a totally different experience from like what my friend had when he was playing it.
So it's funny you mentioned that. Whenever I went to the Steam page to buy this game, the description of it is literally Undertale, the RPG game where you don't have to destroy anyone.
I might not have read that.
That's the full description on there now.
I didn't.
So
Did that affect how you were playing starting out?
What, me?
No, John.
So I read that and I was like, huh, interesting. And then as you start the game and you meet a character, it's reiterated, like Joe says, in the game. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that to heart.
So I guess jumping into that subject, there's no real good time to talk about it. And before we started recording this video, we discussed how we wanted to kind of go at this. Again, I don't know what John does or doesn't know, but at the end of the game, you're given a message anyway, so I think it's fine to discuss that there are multiple ways you can play this game, whether it be what I believe is currently termed the neutral route, the pacifist route, and then the genocide route. I think we all agreed, maybe not necessarily through writing because we're trying to keep from spoiling too much, but to go what a first-time player would probably do and play a neutral run because there's not much intentionality, whether choosing to not kill everyone or to kill everyone, because it's actually pretty easy to kill people accidentally, and it's very hard to kill everyone. So I'm assuming we all probably just did a neutral playthrough for this first time together as a group. Is that correct?
I guess
Yes.
it's worth pointing out the first time that you play Undertale, you are forced to do a neutral route, whether or not you choose to kill everything or spare everyone. It will just give you a normal ending.
Gotcha. Did not know that.
Mhm.
That is good to know.
I don't know if you're supposed to know that your first time playing it, but we've already
Yeah.
played it through once now.
I'll talk about some of that later with my initial frustrations, but I played this game with that knowledge. Unfortunately, that's one of the things I did know. I think Joseph told me at a time where I was like, he didn't spoil it for me as much as I was like, I don't care. And I was talking to him about the game, and I was asking him about the game, and I was like, I'm probably not going to play it, especially not in 8 years after we're done with college and wanting to do a show called Backlog Crew together. So go ahead and tell me all about it. But I did know that, and that kind of influenced the way I played the game. Kurt and Joseph obviously have played this game, so they already knew what they're getting into. But for John, I guess Kurt already asked, seeing that on the beginning, did that influence, the description on Steam, how you're playing it? Was there any intentionality on your end for who you decided to kill or not to kill? Did you kill accidentally? Did you kill indiscriminately?
Yeah.
It just became annoying, or?
So I went out of my way to try to find a way not to kill everything. If I don't know, I think I ended up killing at least one thing. I don't know if there was a way around it though.
Do you remember what it was?
Yeah. Let me get the name. Toriel.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that in a sec.
Okay.
Well, you asked.
So
That was who I killed. healed the first time I played too.
I like died a little bit inside just now.
All right. Well, when we
It's
get
okay, we
when
can
we
talk about it.
when we get to that part,
Right,
I will
right,
be
right,
happy
we can
to
go.
explain why and what happened. So
Sure.
I don't think. Well, yeah, in a sec.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so
That's
after
it.
we finish this introduction to the game, this not really cutscene as much as just like it's a introduction to the game. Every time you open it, it's going to explain the world and just pull you up to the actual title
In
screen.
the world 20X-teen.
XX, yeah, that's definitely not 2015.
Child
So-
falls.
You fall into a hole in the ground, essentially taken to the world that the monsters inhabit. This is all kind of explained in this initial cutscene. After you wake up, you're soon faced with your first combat encounter. It seems like it's a pretty normal talking flower, for as normal as talking flowers can be. I initially assumed this was going to be a tutorial for the game's combat system,
That logically made sense. Yeah.
but I think really it's more of a tutorial on the unreliability of the game's characters and the world itself. I was, the flower gives you a pedal and I was like, come on, touch it, man, touch it. And of course I was like, yeah, I think this is going to hurt me. Because I remember Joseph playing this game. And also just, again, I don't really trust talking flowers. It's kind of weird, man. But I touched it anyway. And of course I think takes all of your health down to 1.
To
I might
1,
be
yeah.
wrong about that. Yeah.
And if you dodge it, he just calls you like an idiot and is like, "What are you doing? Just touch it,
Mad at
you
you.
idiot." And then when you actually do touch it, he just calls you an idiot again.
Mm-hmm.
There's no winning. Again, it's really
Yeah.
a tutorial on the unreliability of some of the game's characters, which I think is fun. But before you can be finished off by this way too powerful flower, you're saved by Toriel, who is a matronly goat lady who spends the next 30-ish minutes or so coddling you through the game's early tutorials that are really a mixture of puzzles, learning the game's controls and combat. Before we go too far into the rest of this, I'll say, just getting it out there immediately, I absolutely hate the arrow keys being used for movement. I looked to try and remap them, and I was looking at things that were going to require way too much work, and then I realized that you could just plug in a controller. And that was almost halfway through the game before I realized that there's controller support for this. And once I realized I could do that, I was like, not going back.
I use the controller for like moving through the overworld, but for combat, I found the arrow keys to be more precise.
See, I think it'd be more precise. I think the keys themselves maybe, but my fingers are not as dexterous as one thumb.
Sure.
And so I was able to get, I think, more accurate dodges with that. But, again, we'll talk about gameplay a little bit later. So, you kind of go through this early area, and she teaches you the basics of combat against a practice dummy that doesn't seem too important. There's a couple of wacky things in this area, like spiders having a bake sale where you can buy some spider pastries or a ghost
Did anyone
prize.
not buy a spider pastry? I'm just curious.
I did not buy a spider pastry.
All right,
I
I
did.
want to come back to that later, Joe, just to see how that paid off.
One thing I want to mention in this area, because I didn't know anything about this game, I wanted to see what would happen. So Toriel, after she gives you the tutorial, she says, all right, you wait right here. I'll be right back. I let that run, and I did some chores in my house for like an hour just to see if she actually came back. She never came back after an hour. So I continued playing, and then immediately she calls me or whatever, and she's like, hey, you're not going to leave, are you? I was like, well, I gave you an hour to come back.
Yeah.
And then I actually played.
A couple of things like this in this game that allows you to kind of test out the mechanics.
Oh, I
push
did
them
some
a
more
little
as
bit.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can talk about some of those later, but I understand that because, everything seems pretty intentional in this game. It's a very dense game. A lot of the dialogue, especially in combat, is very intentionally written. So it's hard to not maybe see that and think, because I remember thinking the same thing. I'll let it sit for like 45 seconds though, and I was like, probably not. It's a little uncomfortable at this point, so I'm just gonna move. But yeah, this early area has a couple of enemies that are fun, like Whimsum, Mold Small, which is like a Jello mold monster, and then Frogget, who's just a unhappy frog.
I think
The enemies are some of my favorite parts of the game.
I think what made doing the combats really fun was trying to figure out how to get the monsters to go away on their own. I think that was really fun. Like flirting with what looks like a bundt cake. It's really funny.
Yeah. You can flirt by like dancing for the Jello. And...
There's so much personality in every single character, and like what I did every time I entered combat was I would check, which is kind of like if you've ever played like Final Fantasy, it's like scan, kind of find out more about them, and it tells you a little bit about their personality, and then it gives you a list of other things you can do. Like there's one character later that's like a washing machine, and your options are not a washing machine, like a little cupid
turtle
thing, and your options are like to bully it, to not bully it, or to do something completely random, and you got to figure out based off of its description, like, well, what does it need to feel complete right now? Like, what should I do? It's really clever.
So through this area, we're greeted with some of these weird encounters like that, and you of course, as we kind of discussed earlier, you can choose to attack, kill them, or not. I think these early enemies, I was doing a mixture of things. There's some enemies you can kill in one hit. Didn't realize that, until it's done. And at that point, I'm like, well, I guess we're set on a trajectory here. But because some enemies will respond immediately if you try to do a weird action, like tell them a joke or something like that. And others, it'll take a few rounds of combat before they budge. But the game is not going to tell you outright. And I think largely it's because the intention is for you to play this game multiple times. The replayability is its probably biggest advantage as a game, from what I can tell in my one playthrough, because I know there's so much I didn't do or could change on subsequent playthroughs. But after we get to the end of this tutorial, we get to home, which is Toriel's home more specifically. She's baked a pie for us and explains that she wants us to stay with her forever. Ultimately, you make your way toward the outside world, and you're stopped by Toriel, who explains that it's too dangerous outside. She also explains the only way to leave is to prove that you're powerful enough to survive, as she's seen too many humans come through and lose their lives. Now, I don't know what everyone thought on their very first playthrough, not this playthrough for Joseph and Kurt, but I think this was a bait and switch. I think this is intentional, that ultimately Toriel is a loving, caring character.
She's
Goat Mom, but the very first interaction you have in this weird world is with someone who tries to get you to trust them and then betrays you. And it kind of made me uncomfortable getting here and immediately being told that she wants me to stay here forever and wants to be my mom and stuff. So I'm naturally distrustful of this already. Whether or not that's intentional or not, I don't know, but I like to think that it is, because it's good storytelling. It's good game development. So this is really your first boss fight of the game, and of course you can explore the house a little bit if you want to prior to this. If there's anything anyone wants to throw in regarding the house or some of the good narrative structure there, because there are things that are important, but I don't really want to beat a dead horse.
Can I rewind a little bit, actually?
Yeah, that's fine.
Two things. One, did y'all find the candy bowl in the ruins?
Yeah.
Did you take a piece of candy?
Just one, yeah.
Yes.
Did you take more than one piece of candy?
No. It said take 1.
If you take 3, then it says something like you reached too quickly and knocked the bowl over, and the candy is just spilled on the ground. And if you try to click on it again, it said, "Look what you've done, you monster." I just thought that was really good. And the only other one I want to talk about was Toriel was the first big boss, but you also fight Napstablook. And Napstablook is amazing. And I want to know John's specifically thoughts on Napstablook.
Can I look that up really quick? Can you remind me what that is?
You might also know him as his stage name, Dapperblook. because he has an attack where he puts on a hat and asks you what you think.
Oh, is that the
Really-
ghost? Oh,
Yeah, ghost.
okay.
He cries
Um,
the top hat onto himself.
Yeah, it's really good.
I don't remember seeing the top hat.
Oh, did you kill Nabsabluk?
Oh, maybe I did.
We can't be friends if you
Was-
killed Nabsabluk.
Was there an option to not? Because he was
Yes.
really
There's an
adamant.
option to not kill everything in this game.
Everything asterisk.
I don't remember purposely killing him. Is this the one that takes over the dummy?
No,
No.
it's a different character.
Oh,
Spoilers.
that's that. Oh, my bad. That's the one I. That's the one I.
Spoilers.
Okay,
Well,
well,
I haven't played the game yet.
clearly, I didn't kill anything that I could find a way not to. So
Should have got me the face.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
All right, we can move back on.
John
Okay.
killed Mr. Crying Ghost,
I don't-
which is
Oh wait,
Oh.
is that the one that shows up later?
Yeah, he shows up later if you don't kill him.
Oh, well then, yeah, I didn't kill him then.
Okay.
That's good.
Last thing, just another thing that I thought was really humorous was Toriel calling you and it's like, "Hey, I'm gonna make a pie. Do you prefer cinnamon or butterscotch?"
Yeah.
And you pick one, and then you take like 2 steps, and she calls you back and is like, "Just to clarify, you don't not like the other one." And then when you get to the house, if you explore the kitchen, there's a cinnamon butterscotch pie sitting on the
It's got
counter,
both, yeah.
and she gives you like a piece of it that you can pick up for a health pickup.
Okay,
Mhm.
I have confirmed. I did in fact see this ghost later, so I did not kill him. I just
Okay.
did not remember the top hat. I played this game like a month ago, so forgive me.
Early.
All right, sorry to take the steam out of your sails, Ryder. There's just so
No,
many
no, no, you're
charming
good.
little things in each section.
This is a hard game to talk about because it's 7 hours, but there's a lot in those 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that's completely fine. If y'all have asides, please let me know. So so the first true boss fight, I guess there's like a maybe mini boss fight with our crying ghost. What's his name again? Bloop.
Nabstablook.
That's the Luke.
Master.
Napstab look. That's how you spell it.
He's
Uh,
considered a mini boss
Napster.
in the game.
Yeah. So he's earlier on. Honestly, I kind of forgot about it myself. I remembered him being there. Forgot I had to fight them. But further on, you have Toriel. She, like I said, blocks your path. Tells you that she's seen too many humans come, and she's not going to let you through unless you can prove that you're strong enough to survive out there. So ultimately, it turns into a boss fight.
Yeah, can I talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I did not murder the ghost. We just confirmed that. So, so I was trying to figure out a way around, not murdering Toriel. I'm guessing by the reactions I received that, in fact, you don't have to kill her.
No,
I didn't know this either.
Mom.
Okay, so
But-
I can tell you what happened for me. I tried.
What happened?
This is an RPG game, so I save a lot. So
Uh-huh.
what had happened was I tried my very best to talk with her and talk her down to get out of the way. She would not do that, so I let her KO me to see what would happen. I consciously made that decision because I was like, I don't feel like I should have to kill her. So I consciously went and got KO'd, and then it put me back in the bedroom. And I was like, oh, so this is just going to respawn me and make me do this till I kill her. So I went back and did the fight to test my strength, thinking that, it's like one of those required boss fight things where it's teaching me how to do a boss fight. And so I thought proving my strength, she would stay alive. And then she did not stay alive. And I was like, well, I made this decision already. I'm not going to go back. So
She ran
But it's-
into your knife. She
It's
ran
very
into your
intentional
knife 2
game
times.
design. Before
Yeah.
we guilt John too hard, I did the same thing, and I did almost the exact same thing that John did, where I attempted to spare her. I tried to talk to her, and it's intentionally set up to where she won't. Initially, at least I realized this after the fact that apparently she will if you continue to pester.
Mhm.
But I made the assumption that, okay, I guess I have to get her health down a little bit more. Also, I let her kill me, thinking like, well, if I let her kill me, maybe we'll do something. No, not there. So I started attacking, started probing, spare, try to talk, all this stuff. Couldn't get anything out of her. And the game is programmed so that you will kill her once she stops attacking you. But like on the first hit that you hit her after she stops attacking you, my Toriel still had half health. I did not realize that she didn't attack me. Again, this is within the first
Hindsight,
probably
right?
45 minutes of the game, and again, it's set up that early so that you do it intentionally, so that it probably sets you on this neutral path of the game where you've already killed someone. Makes you think like, ooh, wait a minute, I didn't mean to do that. I should probably think a little bit more about these fights before I do it again. But yeah, no, I killed her too, and she had half health, and I felt very, very bad for it, and I was actually really frustrated with the game because I was like, half health, this is ridiculous. Um, but it's intentional, so I'm okay with it. That said, I killed her my first time. John killed her my first time. Joseph, did you kill her your first time?
My very first time playing this, I just straight up did not trust Toriel from the very beginning. She was, in my opinion, in my words, she was too nice.
Yeah, too
And I
nice.
Yeah,
didn't like it.
it's creepy.
It's like
Yeah,
Hansel
I
and
told
Gretel
my
type
It's
friend
thing.
intentional.
at the time.
She
I
has
told
this
my
little
friend
house
from
set
high
up.
school.
Like,
Yeah, I told my friend from high school that I killed Goat Mom, and he was just like yelling at me for killing Goat Mom the entire time.
I
But yeah,
guess I can't really give an honest perspective on this since I knew that mercy was an option in any case when I started the game for the first time. But I don't know how I would have reacted to Toriel not knowing that.
I do.
That's such a fascinating thing that all three of you murdered Goat Mom.
Yeah, I do
well, I
want
knew it
to.
was an option, but again, you try like 5 or 6 times to spare or talk, and like it's giving the same dialogue option every time
Right.
or same response. So I'm like,
And I had no
Oh,
idea it
well.
was an option at all.
Did
So
it?
I was like, all right, well,
Did it get the same response every time?
yeah.
Because I feel like one of the ways that you can tell you're making progress, even when you're just sparing an enemy, is that the dialogue is changing. Like in boss fights, a lot of times the only thing you can do is just hit spare over and over again, and you'll see the dialogue continue.
Hers stayed the same.
Yeah,
She
but-
said there's no
okay.
talking your way out of this fight or something like that.
Were
Yeah,
you sparing, or were you trying to?
Not
were you
spare.
acting?
I was
Maybe act.
talking to her, yeah.
That's the difference.
Well, she never turned yellow.
So they don't have to. The way that you overcome some of these is that you just hit spare, which is just refusing to fight, and then they'll eventually relent. So not
Alright,
all bosses
so-
work that way, but
But
that's how
you're-
Toriel works.
So before we go too far, again, we are 45 minutes into this game with neither
Uh-huh.
one of us playing it before. So we are forgiven for killing Goat Mom because
yeah, it's
she
fine.
forgave us when we killed her. So,
This was her
actually, she
idea.
killed herself.
Yeah.
She had half health and she decided to like die. So
Well,
that's on her for pulling a Padme.
there is another mechanic in the game that's usually whenever their name turns yellow, if you choose to fight them, it will one-shot them. If they're
Oh.
at the point where they can be spared.
Interesting.
Or if a
Yeah.
boss is like done with its dialogue, which is something I can bring up later.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that if you've hit her a few times, you could have spared her.
Not necessarily.
Oh,
I don't think you had to fight her at all. I think you could have just kept hitting
You,
spare.
you
But
can just
Didn't
keep
lay
it
a finger.
spared.
It's
I
just
do
about
also want to
survival.
point out that Toriel makes it so that she doesn't hit you if you're at like 1 health. All of her fireballs and stuff will like intentionally avoid you.
Huh.
And you typically have to run into her fireballs, and then she'll give a very unique frame of animation where she's like, because she's never trying to hit you.
Mhm.
yeah. I noticed that whenever I got low health, she was trying not to hit me. I had to consciously make the decision to lose to her because I wanted to know what was going to
Yeah.
happen.
It's not like
Moving
a scripted
on.
fight, but it's
Yeah.
kind of made in a way that it's supposed to be harder to die on Toriel.
After Goat Mom's dead,
I'm tired of talking about killing Goat Mom. She deserved it. She was trying to Stockholm syndrome us
She's
into
too nice.
like regardless of like whether or not she was a nice person or not, you can't hold a child hostage. So she kind of
Justified.
So after
Okay.
you kill this kidnapping goat lady, I lost myself in my notes because of that. Thank you.
You leave the ruins.
So you get out of the ruins and meet Flowey again, who is our little flower friend who taught us that people should not be trusted.
And then he's like, "Ooh, you killed her, didn't you?"
Yeah, he pretty
That's what
much
he told
gives you a
some of us.
rundown of how this is like a kill or be killed world,
Mhm.
and that since I'm a killer, I'm gonna pretty much fit in. Good luck, see you, man. It's a pretty pessimistic message he gives you. if you kill her at least. I'm not sure if you played Pacifist run through all the way through this point. I'm sure you get a different message.
I know you do, but I don't
He,
remember what it
he
was.
still tells you it's a kill or be killed world. He just says you don't get it yet.
Gotcha. So this next area that we're moving into is Snowden or Snowed In, or yeah, either way. Those are the two pronunciations I have. You're quickly met by the only character that I really knew from this game, other than Goat Mom. I didn't know her name, but I did know this one.
Hey, Scope Mom, you got it.
Sans, who is everyone's favorite skeleton in a hoodie who likes to tell really bad jokes. He when I think of Undertale, I think when most people think of Undertale, that's like as far as an image, that's probably what they think of is Sans.
Oh, yeah.
He's just this whole other level of pop culture stardom. He explains that he's supposed to be on the lookout for humans, but you don't really have to worry about him. He's not really into that, and he tells you that he has a brother named Papyrus who is on the lookout for you as well, and he would really like it if you cheered him up, something to that effect. Papyrus, spoiling something that we'll talk about in a few minutes, is probably my favorite character in the game. Like
He's
head
great.
and shoulders my favorite character in the game. So I was not anticipating to enjoy him as much as I did, but he made the early game a lot of fun. So this area, it's a snow area, some really pleasant music. Again, just beautiful color palettes through here. Uses of like blues and purples are really nice. We have a couple of different fun monsters here. We have a snow drake who tells puns, and a ice cap whose whole shtick is he looks like an upside down ice cream cone, I guess. And I think probably one of the best parts about this area are the dog mini bosses,
Dog guard.
who also serve as the dog guard as an extension of I guess the tutorial, continuing to learn in this area. The first one you face is Doggo, who is a ninja dog whose whole shtick is that he can't see you if you're not moving. This is a really hilarious way to teach you that attacks that are colored blue are meant to, you're supposed to allow your, I guess, icon, your heart icon, to remain stationary to not take damage. As soon as you move again, he can see you. I think this is like the first point in the game that had me like just cracking up. I thought this is the funniest thing. The dialogue, the small facial animation differences in the dog when you stop moving. And initially, it's funny because like it's explained for you. There's a lot of things that are very explicit in this game, but I did not realize, like right off the bat, like be still. What? And so I was still trying to dodge. It's like I can't. I literally tried to dodge the first sword and took damage, and I was like, okay. Well, it told me what to do, so that makes sense, I guess. But I think that this whole area is hilarious. There's a couple of really short, small puzzles just kind of working you into the game. But ultimately, I think what stands just above the rest is all the dogs in the area are just so funny. There's one dog that, as you pet him, his neck continues to grow and grow and grow. I'm assuming everyone had a fun time with him too.
That was something I wanted to ask everybody. How many times did you pet the lesser dog?
I pet him until he ran out of dialogue options.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Did you get his head to go off screen?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Did you get it to go off screen again the other way?
Yeah, off, and then he comes back down, and then he comes back up, and then eventually you just run out of dialogue options.
I didn't do that much. That's hilarious.
Yeah, no, he goes up.
Great.
I looked it up to see if there's, because I guess I hit like 65 or something like that. It's a cutoff. But I looked it up
I didn't do
because I
that
was
much.
tired of doing it. Well, because I kept on getting new
John killed the
dialogue
bug.
options, and I was like laughing more and more, and Larkin was sitting in the other room, and she was like, "Are you okay in there?" Because I was just like belly laughing. I thought it was so dumb. Watching like how he like disappears when he's coming back down, and it says like lesser dog can't see you anymore, and then like is you see the top of his head start to poke out, and it still says he can't see you, and then his eyes pop out from under your dialogue box, and it's like lesser dog can see you again. He's happy or something like that, and his like little tail is just going like faster and faster the more you pet him.
The
just
dogs are
a lot of fun.
The dogs are such a good set of enemies because in the ruins area, even Toriel, pretty much every enemy, you just have to do like one thing, and then you can spare them. So with all the regular enemies, it's like you do one action. If you do the right one, you can spare them. With Toriel, it's you just spare continuously, and the fight's over. Theoretically. But with some of these dog enemies, like I think it's Greater Dog, who's like a giant dog. Well, it's a regular sized dog in a giant suit of armor, and just like all dogs, it wants to be pet. But if you try to pet it, it says it's too far away, so you have to call it to you first.
Yeah.
And then on your next turn, you can pet it, and then you do something else on your next turn. So it's figuring out how to do these actions in the right order instead of just clicking the right one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
So I have a question
ahead.
for this area. I know that periodically out through the game, and your first one's here, there's these save areas that have a mouse hole and just random things in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Are
They
those
fill you with determination.
are those puzzles or are they just there for fun? Okay,
Yeah,
It's just fun.
they give
Gotcha.
you determination.
makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess with the mouse gimmick, it starts off like early in the game and continues all the way through. And what John's talking about is like each one has its own weird little thing. You know, initially it's like maybe the cheese is glued to a table or something like that, or it's like in a
One day
inside
the
of
mouse
a
will go for it.
computer or yeah, eventually he'll get to it, and it's like weirder and weirder the further in the game you get, until eventually it's like it's in some like interdimensional prison or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember the specifics. It's like it fills you
One
with
day the mouse
determination.
will reach it.
Exactly, one day. So there's a couple of different dogs here. Does anybody have a favorite one that really sticks out to them? I think this is like my favorite parts of the entire game is each of these.
The lesser dog for sure, but there's also the two dogs that are like madly in love with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the one where you have to pretend to be a puppy?
Yeah,
You
there's
roll
one where
like
you have to, like,
around.
Yeah, that
you
was
try to get them
great.
to smell you, and it's just like they don't want to smell you right now. They think you're a human, so you roll in the dirt, and then you get them to smell you again,
Yeah.
and it's like they think you smell like a puppy.
Yeah.
It's very. Yeah, the lesser
So-
dog, the one with the growing neck, is absolutely my favorite. Every time I play this game, I pet him until he just goes to space.
Outside of the dogs, I think that my favorite part of this area is definitely Papyrus, who've already talked about a little bit earlier. So Sans is obviously the most Sans is the more famous of the two skeletons. Papyrus is, I think, way more interesting, but whatever. Papyrus is, I guess, supposed to be the opposite in other ways. He wears complementary colors, which is kind of interesting. Blue on Sans versus orange on Papyrus. Each of their names is like its own play on like fonts. Where you have
Yeah.
And they
Sans
talk in those
font and
fonts.
Papyrus. Yeah, exactly. It's really weird how they even sound different.
Well, Ryder, if you like him so much, why don't you just marry him?
Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But Papyrus dresses like, I don't know, a attempted superhero. I don't know, maybe
He wears a
knight.
guard uniform that he made for Halloween, and he hasn't taken it off since Halloween.
Oh yeah, you're right.
He even showers in it.
It's he's awesome. He's a good guy. But he tries to come up with all these traps to capture you, and one thing that I love about Papyrus is he's really bad at everything, but he keeps trying, and I kind of relate to that in some ways.
Same.
His traps are especially bad because most of them are presented as kind of puzzles, but none of them really work. Some of them do, but most of them, the ones that do work, are extremely easy. One puzzle is literally just like a plate of spaghetti left for the player. So I don't know. It's really zany, and like I think the personality of the game really shines in this entire area.
There's one trap where it says it's like you'll be faced with a bunch of colored tiles, and all the colored tiles do this, and it lists like 6 or 7 really zany things.
I was really worried about that one in the
Like
first
lemon,
half.
orange,
I was about to say, did anyone like take that super seriously and try to like lock all that in the vault? So that
Oh,
you
yeah.
can get
There's
through
like 4.
They had me in the
Yeah.
first half, not gonna lie.
it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like as he started, I was like, this is gonna suck. I'm like, because I couldn't remember when the last save point was. And then as it started going further, I was like, oh, okay. And it was like a joke that got funnier the longer it went on. And then after you ask him to repeat it to him, did anyone ask him to repeat it?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah.
I did not.
It's hilarious because if you ask him to repeat it, he starts repeating it back. And it's funny because my brain retains some of it, obviously, because he starts repeating it to you wrong.
Yeah.
Oh no,
I don't remember that.
That's so funny.
and then he's like, wait a minute. No, it was backwards. It was blue as the water. Green. No, you've got me all mixed up now. And he's like, I can't even remember what we're supposed to be doing. And he just throws it away and walks away. And of course, you come and read the instructions, and it's just like illegible, like not even
That's
actual
hilarious.
writing. So he just committed it all to memory, and it was all, maybe it would have worked. Who knows?
If you actually activate it, it just ends up making just a straight line that the player can walk across.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of traps like that where like you just literally follow Papyrus's exact patterns or something.
Yeah.
It's extremely easy to do, but fun gimmicks. The next area you enter is Snowden Town. There's some cute furry inhabitants here.
It's a rabbit person walking a rabbit.
Yeah.
That's the one that was my favorite.
There's a couple of or recurring character here, I guess, who's not. He's a little dinosaur dude. I'm not really
His name
sure
is
what he
Monster
is.
Kid. He's wearing a
Yeah.
striped
Monster
shirt,
Kid.
just like us.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what's great is that the bar has just everything you've encountered so far in it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys
Yeah.
encounter that little like rabbit head thing that's in the bar? Because there's a
Don't remember.
The
rabbit
one
head
that's
thing.
drunk.
Yeah, like in the bottom right corner, just
I don't
sitting
know about
there.
that
I
one.
remember.
I'm just curious if that was an enemy because like almost everything else was an enemy, and I don't remember running into that one.
I think it's really funny that the game. Everyone talks about the monsters of the game, how the humans are evil. They're just horrible beings, and like I think part of the intention of the game is there's no other word for it, but humanizing the villains in the game.
Mhm.
Where like all of them all have their
Absolutely.
individual personality. They're sitting in a bar. The what was previously might have seemed like this weird zany monster that you find in something like Dragon Quest or Final Fantasy, the early Final Fantasy, as far as their character designs, show up to the bar and drink and have families. That's something that's pointed out, I guess, multiple times through the game. So the Snowden area, though, there's a couple of different things to interact with here. I'm not really going to touch on any of it for the sake of time, but it culminates with a boss fight against Papyrus. And I think this is the first point in the game where I think I really was like, now this is cool, because it changes the formula of the gameplay. So typically, like I said, it's been a bullet hell up until this point where you're playing in combat sections during the defensive portions as a little heart icon dodging the projectiles or whatever's coming at you. And this changes it up because you're warned by Sans over and over. Yeah, watch out for my brother's blue attack. And my brain, I'm thinking, okay, and it's intentional. Again, this game is so dense, it's all intentional. But I'm thinking about how you have the the blue attacks earlier that you learned from the dogs. So if I just sit still, I'm going to make it through okay. And your fight against Papyrus starts. It seems like a fairly normal boss fight at the beginning until he uses his super famous blue attack. At which point you've learned anything from earlier. You sit still to make sure you don't take any damage from any of his attacks. And after the attack pattern finishes, your heart turns blue, and all of a sudden it becomes weighted, drops to the bottom of the screen. And now instead of being able to free move your heart around the screen, you're now playing like a kind of offshoot of Flappy Bird or something, where you have to
It's the T-Rex
jump through a weighted heart.
when your internet's
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, the Google.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So I guess again, Kurt and Joseph, you already kind of knew about this, but for me and John, this is something completely new. John, did this kind of scare you initially? I know for me, I was like, it's kind of fun, but also I was immediately like terrified because I was already not good at this gameplay.
I was taking a lot of damage in that fight. I really was, because I was forgetting to get to jump around, move around as well as the jumping. I was thinking that the heart was like stationary, and I was like, how in the world am I supposed to do this without taking all this damage? Then when I started moving the heart around, it got better, but I was still hitting like clipping the very edges of some of them, like whenever you have to do the long jumps. So
That was one problem I feel like I had in that boss fight and a couple of these other boss fights where the rules of engagement were changed a little bit. And it very well could have been me, but quick criticism of the game. I feel like some of the hitboxes on attacks are a little weird, and there are points where I should have been hit, where I definitely grazed a projectile or something, you know, unless there was something smaller than a pixel separating us. I looked like I hit them. And there are other times where I wasn't really touching something, but I took damage anyway. And maybe that's me imagining it because these things were happening quickly. But I do feel like there's a couple of points like that where, you know, in the midst of all this flying on the screen, I was like, that probably should have given me damage, or that probably shouldn't have hurt me. But
Yeah, I think
anyone
that's
else
fair
experience issues like
assessment.
that? Yeah.
I can see
Yeah,
that. I'm
nothing
probably just also
specific, but
I'm probably just also really used to it because I've played this game like a dozen times at least.
Yeah, Joseph's hit like 55 hours on Steam right now for this game.
Yeah.
So
the
his
7-hour game.
opinion, his opinion matters very little and quite a bit in different places. So
Yeah, I can't give too much of a new experience because my new the first time I played this was like 5 years ago or 8 years ago, I guess.
And I was trying to think of how to incorporate y'all into discussions like this specifically. I think maybe something to ask you was, as people who've played this game a couple of times, did this boss fight still give you any trouble? Was this something that, you know, at any point you still experienced difficulty, frustration?
Not
I think
this time.
I think I had to use healing items, but there were very few boss fights where I felt like I was stuck. And I remember the first time I played, pretty much every boss felt like a wall that I had to just get good at, memorize patterns, and overcome. But whether it's me just subconsciously remembering things or just knowing how the game works and being able to react better, it was definitely easier the second time around.
There's one boss in particular that I died a couple times on, but for the majority of the game, I think I used healing items 3 times throughout this playthrough, maybe.
Oh, I did
But
way more than that.
speaking of healing items, did any of you guys go to the shop in Snowden Town
I went to
or
the
at any
shop
point
and
in the game?
tried to sell things, and they mocked
I was gonna
me.
bring up, yeah.
Yeah.
If you try to sell things to like 99% of the shopkeepers in this game, they'll just be like, "I don't want to buy your crap. I'm trying to make money here.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't
really
make
good.
money if I do that." But a lot of the shops also give you a lot of lore. If you try to talk to them, you can talk to them and they'll be like, you can ask them questions like, "How did you get here? Like, what's going on here? How have you guys been living?" That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's fun the way that a lot of world building is built into the game. It encourages you to talk. I don't really know how consequential it is if you don't communicate from like an actual gameplay perspective, because there are points where like maybe I died and had to reload and I didn't do it again. I don't know if it did or didn't affect anything, but it was still fun to kind of learn the world itself because I feel like that ultimately is very impactful to your enjoyment of the game. I don't know if the game necessarily encourages you to engage with everyone, but I definitely feel like the game is going to feel lacking if you don't get some of that information because it makes it way more of an emotional journey, kind of going through some of this stuff with you know the knowledge of how the world became the way it did. So you know through this papyrus boss fight, going back to it, you know again you're playing the T-Rex jumping game from Chrome after your internet's out. Uh, I guess before we go into what I did anyone kill Papyrus? No. Okay, good.
I really
I would have
thought
gotten
about it.
upset about it. No, I'm glad you didn't. So Papyrus is the only one that I think I could not kill at all. So the way to finish this boss fight, something I didn't mind doing at all. I had to flirt with Papyrus because you know he's super cute. He has nice bone structure. And since I was also cute in turn, he ends up sparing me. You can go back and forth and get this really funny like flavor dialogue as you're like flirting as you're continuing to talk to Papyrus, and he's like, "No, I shouldn't. But eventually he ends up deciding to go on a date with you later. Also, did anyone lose to this boss specifically? Papyrus?
I did lose to him the
No.
first time. Yeah.
Okay. I lost to him actually twice. The first time you lose, he sends you back to his I guess garage, and
Yeah.
he leaves you some dry dog food.
Is that how you get into the garage?
Yeah, that's how you get in
I
there.
did
So
not know
funny.
that.
And the best part is the bars are spaced so far you can just walk out.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever
he's
seen that.
like leaves you a note and has like a dog bed, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Feel free to like make yourself at home. I left some food for you," and it's like dry dog kibble. But you walk right back out, and I get right back in a fight with him. Well, I died again, and so he sends you right back. And you get some extra flavor dialogue, by the way. He's like, "What? No, you're supposed to be waiting in there. Like,
Yeah.
please go back. That's not very nice of you." But after I died again, he sent me back, and this is one of the few points in the game where dying doesn't present you with a game over screen, because Papyrus is just trying to capture you instead, and he does like you. So he sends you to jail essentially in his garage. But the second time I died, he sent me back to the garage, and he said, "I decided to make it a little bit more comfortable for you. I hope you like what I've left for you." And the bed's exactly the same, but if you go over to the bowl of dog food, it has cut up hot dogs in it. So it's really, really funny flavor. I was cracking up so much this entire Snowden section. I'm not sure if there's a third or fourth time. I'm sure there is. I kind of want to replay and die a few times so I can experience that. So don't tell me, Joe, if you're on the wiki or something.
I have honestly never seen the inside of the garage.
Yeah, I was wondering what it
Good
was
to know you're
for.
good.
Yeah,
But no,
I'm learning
I
something
died
here.
twice. But after you go back again, you finish the boss fight. Uh, you spare him. He spares you with the agreement to go on a date with him. I'm not sure if the date is actually skippable or not. But I went on the date with Papyrus. So you go
Same.
back to his house and he shows you around. Does anybody want to talk about the house in particular? I don't want to dominate kind of the description of what's going on here.
I just think all the little things are hilarious. Like he basically invites you to the house and it's like, all right, feel free to look around and talk to me when you're
Right.
ready to actually date. And there's like a dirty sock on the floor with a series of sticky notes of the
Yeah.
brothers arguing about needing to be picked up. There's you go to the sink that's the size of a refrigerator, and he's like, I made the cabinet taller so that I can store more bones underneath there. And you open it up, and the dog is taking all the bones. There's a pet rock that he says that belongs to Sans, but he has to take care of it because his brother's irresponsible. And then little dialogue says there are sprinkles on it. It's just all a bunch of really funny things.
And the fridge is filled with nothing but spaghetti on one side, and the other side has a half-eaten bag of chips in it. There's also like the television in the room. You turn the TV on, and it's just like a busy signal. And Papyrus tells you it's his favorite TV show, but normally it's a little bit better than this.
Like there's so few lines of dialogue in this game that are not just wonderful.
Right.
Like there's no throwaway stuff. Like I mentioned before we started recording, I've been playing like Final Fantasy 16, which is just this huge game made by maybe not thousands, hundreds of people, with millions of dollars spent on it. And you walk into an NPC and it's like, boy, goblins, right? And it's like, okay, well, I won't get those 3 seconds back. And like it makes the world feel, I guess, whatever. But the dialogue in this is rich, and it's always worth your time to go out of your way to talk to an NPC. Most of the time, multiple times, to just get really, if nothing else, entertaining, but more often than not, like useful dialogue that will either give you hints about systems or world building.
It's like a width of a puddle, the depth of an ocean type of thing. Like it's not a very big game, but there's so much in it. And I know that I've played around. I've put like 50 hours or so into RPG Maker during a summer in college because I was like, I want to try seeing what I could do with this. and it's so much more work than I think anyone really realizes, even with good tools to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really impressed me was the amount of description on each of these items, because each description requires its own dialogue to go with it, and like there's so many things in the environment that are interactable. You can't necessarily like go and push over a mailbox or something like that, but you can go click on it and read it, and each one of those requires like an action event. And if there's additional dialogue with it, there's an additional action event chain that has to be looped into it. Like it's just nothing is as superficial as it seems. Not only from like a just aesthetic perspective of something being in the map, but the amount of work that had to go into creating the game in its current state is just kind of astounding for one person to have done all of this and just put so much life and humor into something as silly as a refrigerator or as a TV. But yeah, I think Papyrus is / Sans house is like one of the best examples of this because it's such a dense area, and Papyrus's bedroom has similar things. Once you get into his bedroom, to have the date do whatever people do on dates in people's rooms is you have the dating mini game that presents itself as almost combat initially. Kind of worried me, but has like a whole dating HUD that pops up. It's so.
Oh, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it kind of feels like that sometimes.
It actually
commentary. But I don't know if anyone wants to talk about this specifically. It's a fun little aside. It gives even more levity to something that I was already just thoroughly enjoying.
Did y'all try clicking on the bed?
Yeah,
Because if
I
you
think
click on
so.
the bed,
Yeah.
he's just like, "Yep, that's my bed." And if you click on it again, he's like, "Do you like it?" And then you click on it again, he's like, "Why do you keep staring at my bed? Are you tired or something?" And he's just immediately following the dialogue of like, "All right, let's go to the bedroom and do whatever you do on a date." And
Yeah, so I actually
he's
didn't
just
do
like,
that.
"What do you want with the bed? I don't understand." It's really funny.
It's funny how clueless he is. He's written
Right.
like a child who just never grew up.
He's
Mhm.
he's more of a
endearing.
puppy than some of the dog
Yeah.
characters are.
Honestly, yeah.
During this dating mini game, you get him to take off his clothes, and you see that he's wearing underneath it. Is it like a jersey,
Basketball
Jim
jersey.
Shore?
It's like a crop top that says "cool dude" or something like that, and a backward visor.
Exactly.
Got a backwards hat. Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it too much more because we talked about it a lot, but it's a lot of fun. I think ultimately my favorite part about all of this though is his race car bed.
Yeah.
It's just it's fun. And also, it does feel kind of accurate when you're going on a first date with someone. He's like showing off his bedroom. As goofy as it is, he's like you're like looking at everything and feeling the need to over explain. He's like, "That's my action figure set," and like has to go into like way too much description to explain its necessity. After you finish the Snowden area, though, you move on to the waterfall.
Wait,
I think at this point,
he tells you that he can't be in a relationship with you. After,
oh yeah, he has to break
The
it
end
off.
of the date.
yeah. It's very
Yeah,
sad.
he
bad
tells you that he
first
still
date.
wants to be friends, though, and he feels very lucky for you to to have gone on a date with such a cool guy. It's funny because as conceited as he is, it doesn't bother me because he's kind of stupid, I guess. I don't know, but it's such a like well written character. But through Papyrus, you've heard of this character called Undyne multiple times. Undyne.
Undying.
It's
I've been saying
Undyne, I
No,
think.
it's Undyne.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Undyne. Yeah.
And then one thing, you also go on a date with Sans as well. You go get dinner.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's like,
Before you enter
he's
the
like, "Hey,
waterfall.
let me take you to dinner," and he walks the opposite direction of the restaurant, and it's like, "Don't worry, I know a shortcut," and then just teleports
ends
you
up
to
there,
the restaurant when you go off screen.
And aren't you like, whoa, that was a quick shortcut or something like that?
Yeah, he does.
There's like an option for that. I think that's actually in the waterfall area is where you meet Sans at that point.
It's like walking to it.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And then you don't even eat the food is the one thing for me. You never eat the food.
Did you put ketchup on your burger, John?
Yeah, I think so.
You try to put ketchup on it, and like the lid falls off, and the entire bottle of ketchup splatters all over the hamburger.
Oh no, I didn't do that. Whoops.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That happened
I
to
did.
me.
Gotta have ketchup on it. You can't eat a burger dry.
No way.
So in the waterfall area, it is what it sounds like. It's a massive waterfall. Papyrus has told you multiple times. You've heard him talk to Sans. You might have heard a couple of other people as well talking about this character called Undyne, who is the leader of the guard, the royal guard, I believe is what it's called for the king. This is actually the first area in which we encounter her, and I think most of the area is her either hunting us so that she can give our human soul to King Asgore, or us solving, I think, what are, I believe at least to be pretty easy puzzles, even easier than some of the earlier things.
Oh yeah.
Um, I think that like this area in general has a couple of funny enemies. There's Aaron, who's just like a seahorse, I guess, like a super muscular horse
Super
who
buff.
flexes all the
He
time.
flexes out of the room.
Yeah, exactly. You keep on flexing until he disappears. There's Washua, who's
So-
Joshua, but he washes.
Fun fact
Yeah.
about Aaron: if you fight him enough, eventually in your action section, you'll get one that just says "shoo Aaron away" or "make Aaron go away," and so it'll just go. You tell Aaron to go away, he goes away.
Aw.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if
I
you
wish
fight
it
him
worked.
enough. I don't know how long it takes, but eventually it does that.
That's really funny.
I didn't know
There's
that. It's funny.
another character earlier in the game that you can just ignore him. I can't remember his name, but you just like ignore him and he just disappears like automatically. It feels super bad about it. But, I think like other options that pop up are just dialogue for flavors. Like that character is making, like Melvin or something like that, is making everyone else uncomfortable or something
Mhm.
like
Oh
that.
yeah.
But there's also like a Shiren, just a shy siren that you can sing to. I think the enemies, of course, are fun. Ultimately, though, I don't think this is a particularly interesting area to me.
I think
This is
Cheyenne was my favorite enemy character that you can encounter because you would defeat her normally by humming to her until you get to a point where you can spare. But did any of you continue humming to her?
No.
No, what happens?
If you keep humming to her, you'll just like start singing a song, and then the dialogue will say that you're drawing quite a crowd, and you can keep singing, and it'll be like you're at a stage concert, and there's people cheering you on. And if you keep humming, Cheyenne will be like, "This is going to be her last song. This is her last concert before all the crowd like decides to go away." And you keep humming, and she just like feels content and leaves on her own.
That's so cute.
It's another one
Yeah.
of those characters where you can just like keep doing things to like continue the dialogue chains.
Abuse the game until eventually it gives up.
And
It is
Shiren ends up coming back later,
Hmm.
as part of like I don't remember which character it is, but one character has a band, and she ends up being part of that one.
I don't even remember if I hit that.
I think what did you say? If this is less interesting than Snowden, is that what you said?
Yeah, there's just not a lot. I think it's a very pretty area as far as like
It's
aesthetically.
gorgeous.
I enjoyed the music.
Mm-hmm.
The colors that are chosen are just beautiful. Lighting's great, but as far as like the story itself, and there's not much as far as character interactions compared to earlier, because I was anticipating the rest of the game to be as dense like that.
Yeah.
With these zany characters, and there are zany characters, but they're not anywhere near the same as like the Sans and Papyrus dynamic from
It's-
earlier.
Clear.
It's definitely less funny, but this is like the lore dump section because there's these like runes, glyphs on the walls as you proceed through it that basically just give you the background for the entire world. It explains the there was a war between the humans and the monsters. The humans won and sealed the monsters underground with magic, and that to escape, the King of Monsters Asgore is trying to collect 7 human souls to break through the barrier. And I don't know, that is really interesting if you're into that kind of thing. But if you're not getting into the weeds, it is kind of a odd change of pace.
I agree. I think that is a lot of fun. I do enjoy the lore here that's presented, and I do think it's necessary for me at least to enjoy the game, because I don't enjoy the normal gameplay loop enough for me to think that it'd be fun otherwise. Because I enjoy the funny characters, whatnot, but that's not. At some point, actually, I'm getting pretty annoyed with the characters. We'll talk about that later. But I did enjoy a lot of the lore that's presented there. And throughout the entire game, especially like the last little bit of the game, there's some really cool stuff that's thrown in. But like I said, a lot of this area is you trying to run away from Undyne. There's a fun little section or two sections maybe where you're running from Undyne and she's throwing spears at you, and I'm assuming you can probably dodge them the entire way. If you're like me or maybe a little bit slow on getting around corners or something like that, she might hit you with the spear, at which point it sends you into like a mini combat where you can run away from Undyne. But actually, I think I've actually went too far. You have your first combat encounter with Undyne before this. Is that correct?
I don't think so.
You
I think
almost have one, and then
You almost
a
have one.
mysterious child shows up, and who is a
Yeah.
really big fan of Undyne.
yeah.
And yeah, luckily they help you out a few
Monster Kid and
times.
Undyne are essentially the only character spotlights in this area.
You also have
Mhm.
Papyrus calling you on the phone, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because again,
Giving
he's
away your location.
because he's friends with Undyne, so he wants to help her. So he calls you and is like, "Hey, what are you wearing?" And
Yeah.
first of all, that's hilarious. After you just had a date.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know about you guys, but I don't imagine that it affects it this much. But I told him the truth about what I was wearing,
I
and
did
then
too,
he's like, "Awesome." And then Undyne finds you, and he calls you back later, and it's like, "Hey." So Undyne asked, so I told her what you told me. I told her the truth, but I knew that you were super smart.
Right.
So obviously you would know what I was doing, and you would change and still be safe.
Yeah. There's like a little bit sprinkled throughout. I think this section just feels a little bit slower to me than the previous area. But there's a lot of fun stuff like that through there. But after you continue dodging away from Undyne, eventually you do come to a boss fight with her. Um, she presents a little bit more of lore and explains how humans are horrible, murderous creatures, and she's going to be the one to bring your soul to King Asgore. Uh, you're presented with a new boss fight where, again, the dialogue here is very intentional because she tells you you need to face this fight head on. And you see another gameplay switch up where instead of dodging, now the only way for you to prevent damage is by facing the direction of attacks.
Gives you
I
like
thought
a
this
shield.
yeah, essentially. So you turn to one of the four directions and block. Occasionally there's a switch up where an arrow is coming at you, maybe from your right, but the arrow is pointed to the left.
That was really hard to keep up with.
Yeah, those really mess with my mind.
Fast. I think that this was one of my favorite boss fights because it was such a cool switch up from what we'd seen previously. Anybody have any particular comments on this one?
Undyne is in particular one of my favorite characters, but I think she also has one of the hardest boss fights in the game.
Yeah,
I would agree
I
with that.
think that's definitely true. It's definitely the one I had the most trouble with the first time I played it. And after the boss fight, her design is neat, but like in her suit of armor, she's terrifying. Like she looks like she's from a completely different game.
Right. Yeah.
It's really interesting to me because I think that this is hard for y'all. I think I did this one time, and that was it. It's just interesting how like these different boss fights can be, experienced so differently for different people. Because like the Papyrus fight killed me twice. I think the only person that had that issue. Something clicked in this for me that didn't with the others. I think it was more pattern based. There wasn't as much randomness to it, having to dodge directionally, like in circles and stuff.
So, are we about to move on past the waterfall area, I guess?
Not quite. I was going to talk real quick
I
about.
was going to say I had 3 different things to bring up before we left.
Yeah, so you end up having. I don't remember if this before or after, and forgive me because my notes are a little sloppy about this part. But you end up meeting a dummy, or and you have the option
This is
to
before.
walk right past it. This is before the Undyne boss fight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the dummy, John, do you want to explain it? You talked about it a little bit earlier with I think Napsta Blue.
Yeah. So the dummy, you try to walk by it, and then it gets all mad at you, and then it's got a ghost in it, and it attacks you, right?
Correct.
All right.
I think it will also fight you if you do talk to it.
Oh, does it? Oh.
I think.
So the first time I played this game, the only thing that I killed was the training dummy in the tutorial. Because I was like, this is a training dummy. I want to learn how this works. And I killed it, and Toriel was like, oh my gosh, you're just as bad. And so when I got to this fight, I assumed that he was angry at me because I killed that training dummy. But this time I didn't fight the original dummy either, and this one just attacked me. So is this just like everyone fought this battle?
This is also a mini boss.
Okay. And did everyone's battle end with Napstablook saving the day? Is that what happens?
I'm assuming if you kill Napstablook, maybe not. But
Yeah, I was wondering how it would end.
Yeah.
I think so.
Don't know.
Yeah,
I'll
I
have to
think
see
that's right.
on my genocide run.
Yeah, I didn't kill it.
I gotcha.
I did kill the training dummy at the very beginning in the tutorial is on this run.
How could you?
Well,
So continuing after this fight, Napstablook ends up coming and saves the day. You get to go visit his house, listen to some music that he has, some really fun ghosty music. He's working on a mixtape right now. There's also a snail farm that's ran by the Blook family. I'm not sure if that's right or not.
It's just Napstablook again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
he's just hanging out there.
It's like
in
I thought it was multiple ghosts, but it turns out it's just him every time. He just sort of teleports around.
So
in
Isn't it like
Napstablook's
Blook
house,
Farms or something like
did
that?
everyone trip?
Did
I
everyone what?
In Napstablook's house, did everyone trip balls?
I pondered
Yeah.
the existence of the universe for
Yes.
Heck yeah.
in real life over an hour long. I left it running and did stuff in my house.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
it's pretty good
Did you
music.
do this, Ryder?
Yeah, I did. I didn't do
Okay.
it for an hour. I probably sat there for about
You missed
2.5
out.
minutes, and it was just. And then eventually, I was like, "Oh my god, I need to do something
Well-
because it was getting late."
Yeah.
I felt bad for him. He was like, "Yeah, no one likes to visit me. If you want to leave, you can." And I was just like, "No, I will sit here an hour with you and
Yeah.
just ponder the universe." And I did.
John, that's just the kind of person you are.
Maybe so.
Guys, I'll ponder
Sounds
the
like it.
universe with y'all anytime you want to. Just let me know.
I'll just
Not
play
that
that
long.
specific song.
I did have a question about the snail farm. I tried to win at the snail races. Is it possible to win?
It is possible.
How does
So, like,
one win?
Is it random?
I tried.
No, you have to. It's like a very specific number. I actually Googled it to figure out how to do it. If you cheer him on like exactly 7 times at the very beginning, then he'll end up winning the race. But you still won't make money.
Yeah.
Oh.
You'll
Well,
pay 10 to,
so the
you'll
way
pay
it
10
works,
to enter, and then they'll give you like 7 after you win, and they're like, we still have to make money somehow.
I also looked it up, and there's a way where I don't remember the exact mechanics of it, but you encourage him a certain amount so he doesn't freak out and panic, and he'll be like this far behind first place, and the guy will say the red snail won, and then there'll be boxes the yellow snail is looking at the referee because it really thinks it won, and it's like fine, and it'll pay you like 20 gold or 30 gold or something to keep the yellow
Oh my
snail
gosh.
happy.
Hmm.
Wow.
awesome.
We have to like come in a close second to actually make money off of the game.
Yeah,
It's like very weirdly specific.
Mhm.
I think I over encouraged my snail and had him like curl up into his shell and not want to come back out.
Performance
Does he-
anxiety.
Am I making up that he'll catch on fire eventually? If you
It
just
looked
keep,
like he was on
keep
fire.
spamming? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
That's
I
so
couldn't
funny.
tell if he was on fire or if it was supposed to be some type of like indication, like
That's so
anime,
sad.
like he's upset or something. I don't know.
no, I think he catches fire.
I think he literally just freaks out and catches on fire.
I like that.
Um, other things in Waterfall, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
Did you guys find the magic orb that you get after completing the piano puzzle?
Yes.
Mhm.
I didn't do the piano puzzle this time.
Yeah. So you do a piano puzzle, which is just you have to play the notes in order to play the melody that's happening in Waterfall. And then it opens a secret door, which you go through, and there's an orb, and you try to pick it up, and it said it's a magic orb, but your pockets are filled with dogs or something like that.
Right.
And you open your inventory, and it's literally just filled with dogs.
There's
And
like one dog in particular. I can't remember what he's called though.
I don't remember exactly what it is, but you like try to drop it, and the dog like
Annoying dog.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
the dog like grabs the orb and just runs away. Is there anything more to this that I missed, or is that just the bit?
I
That's
think
it.
it also gives you like a healing
A
item,
dog
like a
residue.
salad.
Yeah,
Or
leaves
something.
behind dog residue.
Dog poop. Yeah, so that like weirded me out so much because I was talking about this before the video with John, but I was playing this. I'd been up for like 20 hours at that point. I was extremely tired, and I was sitting there playing and got to this point. It was right before I quit for the night, and I was like, annoying dog. And I opened my inventory.
Where did I pick up a dog?
And I looked at it, and I just stared at it like this, like, like at my screen, like, what? And it clicked on it. Now I didn't click like view info or anything like that. And I clicked use, and of course, like he disappears. And like I couldn't even laugh at it. And I know that was probably the intention. I was just so confused by it, and I was like, "What did I do wrong?" And, like I actually, that was one of the only things. Might be the only thing that I looked up was like how to prevent annoying dog.
Yeah.
And it was like, no, you can't do anything about it. It just is what it is. So it made me feel a little bit better. But again, I was just so tired I couldn't even enjoy it at the time.
Last thing I wanted to bring
good.
up. Did y'all fight Timmy?
Timmy? Yeah, I love Timmy. I went to Timmy Village and
I
everything.
said, did you find Timmy Village?
That's
Yeah.
what I
I
was
didn't
gonna
find
ask too.
Timmy
I think
Village.
everybody found Timmy Village.
So
Yeah,
mhm.
go ahead, John.
I went to the shop in Timmy Village and I exhausted my dialogue, and she was like, "Yeah, Timmy really need money for college or something," and so I was like, "Well, all right, I'll farm these enemies."
Oh no.
Yeah, I farmed them and I let Timmy go to college.
Yes.
Did you
Oh
really?
my
That's
god, I'm
awesome.
so happy.
Yeah,
I'm so
and
happy you did.
then when Timmy comes back from college, Timmy's selling a new item that costs 9,000 gold.
What is it?
Timmy armor. I don't remember the actual name.
Okay.
And it literally has in the description makes combat trivial.
That's awesome.
So
Fun.
naturally,
You
I
did
farmed
get that
for that
money.
armor. I did farm for
You
that
get it?
armor. Yeah, I bought the armor. Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah, I didn't have any problems the rest of the game.
How much defense did it give you?
A lot. Let me see if I can look it up.
Sick.
You're
Yeah,
looking it
that's
up?
That's hilarious.
That's how I figured out that Aaron, you could just tell him to go away.
Plus 20 defense, plus 1 HP every other turn,
Yeah, I healed every.
plus
Yeah,
10 attack.
I never used the
Jeez.
attack really, but yeah.
So, additionally, with the dog residue, if you use dog residue, it gives you dog salad, just infinitely. So you could just sell that because the Temmie shop is also the only shop in the game where you can sell things and they'll pay for
Yeah.
it.
Oh, how much was that worth? Dog
I don't
salad.
remember, but you could do that if you didn't want to just like farm.
I didn't want to, but I did anyway.
Too little, too late.
Yeah. Next playthrough.
Yeah. And
Each
the
time
theme
you
song
die,
for
increase the cost.
Timmy Village is hilarious.
Yeah.
It's so good. And Timmy is actually one of the artists. Like the person who I believe did the most on the game besides Toby Fox.
So
One of Toby
and,
Fox's friends.
Yeah, like, and she goes, her online name is like Timmy. I mean, her real name might be Timmy, but I know her
It
accounts
is.
are Timmy, and her like avatar persona is basically a Timmy dog, and it's just a really fun thing that she probably just took upon herself to include.
and so how you beat a Temmie in combat is you feed it Temmie flakes. Just a fun fact.
I looked at that and I was like, again, I was super tired and I was like, is that like limited? I don't know how many of those. I
Yeah,
got.
you had to you had to
My
buy it from the
inventory, and I
Temmie
was
shop.
Yeah, I was like, I don't remember getting these. Oh, I don't have any. Yeah, I click on it anyway.
What's funny, in the Temmie shop, there are options for 1 gold Temmie flakes, and then regular price Temmie flakes, and then overpriced Temmie flakes, and it just says in parentheses or something, "Thank you" or something like that
Yeah.
for the overly priced ones.
She's just trying to make money to go to college,
Right.
even though she'll buy anything you give her.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
And you try to talk to her about like the history of the Timmys, and they just say, Timmy have proud history. That's all it says.
See, I guess I didn't get to do this at all. I don't know. I missed the shop.
It's
Kinda
there's
confused
a
about that.
there's like a hidden, you know, the room with the crystals, I think,
Yeah.
where everything's like lighting up.
Mhm.
There's like a hidden invisible path. I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
NPCs will tell you about it later, and you can like go back and find it, or if you just know where it is, you just follow the path.
I remember one of them saying it. I think it was like the gondola dude, the boat person, whatever.
Yeah,
It was like,
that's it.
here's Timmy Village, and I was like, no, I've been there. I was expecting it to be like actual,
Like
a named
Snowden?
area, like Snowden, Waterfall, Hotland, whatever. But it wasn't, so that's why I didn't go back to try to find it. But pushing forward, after you finished the Undyne fight, did anyone kill Undyne?
No.
No? Okay. So after that boss fight, since we all spared her, she begins to chase you. And I guess actually you have to flee from her is the way that it ends. And I think there's dialogue cues in that to essentially tell you it's time to go. But she'll continue to chase you, and if she ever catches up with you, it's funny because you can just flee the fight immediately, and like there's no real risk as long as you continue to flee. You know, Papyrus has to call in while you're doing this to intentionally interrupt and break the tension a little bit. I'm kind of happy I did. Again, I was super exhausted doing this. I was like, so having Papyrus hop in made it a little bit more fun.
I think he even tells you, like, you should meet my friend Undyne. Let's all go to her house one day and hang out.
Yeah.
While you're being
really like
chased.
This area ends up bleeding over into the next area, Hotland, and I guess Undyne begins to start to sweat through her armor. It becomes too hot to continue moving. It ends up collapsing right as you happen to find a not too conveniently placed water cooler. You can, I guess you have a choice. I don't know if you do or don't have to do it, but I chose to give her a cup of water. And after I did that, she just got up and left. Did anybody not give her water? I'm curious if that had any effect on gameplay, or did it kill her? Or
I gave her water.
I gave her water too.
We are good people.
I'll try it some other time then.
It is a choice though. You can choose not to. I think she'll be fine.
After that, though, I didn't have anything else in that area, so I'm going to move on to.
Did you do the party?
No.
You get a call from Papyrus later that's like, hey, I want you to come to a party at my friend's house. They live at this location. And you go there, and there's just like a giant fish head shaped house. And you knock on the door, and it's Undyne's house.
When I went, no one was home.
So you have to go after the boss
fight.
fight. Invites you in, and Papyrus is like, I forget his excuse, but he's like, oh, I have to like go do laundry or something. And then the animation, literally the sprite just turns sideways. Papyrus the sprite, and then he just shoots out of the window. and then you and Undyne, like, she treats you like a guest because you're a guest in her house, and she's like, okay, I have to behave differently now. I can't try to kill you because you're a guest in my house. And then eventually you like befriend her.
Yeah, I missed this entirely. I don't even remember the phone call from
I don't believe
Papyrus.
this happens if you have killed anybody.
Oh, okay.
You have to do You
I was
spoiled
gonna
my pacifist playthrough.
I apologize.
See, that's what I was thinking. I didn't remember that happening.
I apologize.
One thing I almost forgot
For you from the call.
is the Kraken in the waterfall area, or the octopus.
Oh yeah.
So creepy.
Where it comes out of the water and it's like, hey, I don't get many visitors around here.
Yeah.
You can stay as long as you want or something. And then you keep walking. It's like, oh, you're going to go? Oh, okay.
And if you, I don't know if it's like optional dialogue or not, but eventually it says like, yeah, the water levels around here are dropping rapidly, and like, I basically have to like be on my hands and knees to actually be underwater. It's like,
it was so terrible.
I was thinking at the time, I was like, is this supposed to be like some allusion to climate change, or is this supposed to be funny? It's just kind of making me sad. I don't know, but I left it anyway.
I apologize for spoiling that party, but I do know for a fact that that's not like that is part of the neutral run. Just the neutral run if you haven't killed anyone up to that point, because I definitely did that in my first playthrough.
I definitely killed people. I killed a lot of people accidentally. To be fair, because I didn't realize that there's an option to spare just immediately, and so because sometimes you'll try to either spare or try to do an action like tell a joke or whatever, and you won't get any response from it. I usually would try that 2 or 3 times, and like if I didn't get anything, I'm like, guess
I
it's time to
tried.
kill. Yeah. Well, I'd usually like attack like once, and a lot of those were like non-boss enemies, and if you happen to get like a critical, and land your space bar like right in the middle, then it was pretty much like auto death for a lot of those. So I accidentally killed probably like 3 or 4 non-boss enemies.
Poor Washua.
But I never killed Washua. He was cool.
Good.
But next area is Hotland. So after heading in here, you're immediately, I think you're pretty much met with 2 guards who tell you they're not going to let you through, but you could try going to this creepy lab over here. These guards are acting on behalf of Undyne, who, even though she spared you, is still not really buds with you. Going into the factory, or not factory, goodness, the laboratory, the lights are off, lights come on, and you're greeted by Dr. Alphys, I think is the pronunciation that I'm going to go with here. Alphys.
Yeah, no R, but you do you, man.
Pretty close.
Give me some slack. I'm over here looking between notes.
I'm gonna not do that actually.
And Dr. Alphys, has a interesting personality. Begins to tell you, over-explain things to you regarding kind of not necessarily lore, but like her own place in the world and her relationship to King Asgore. And she ends up explaining that she created a robot called Metaton, who is a killer robot, but she did that accidentally. So whoops! And no sooner than she finishes explaining this, Metaton busts out of the wall.
He Kool-Aid Man's out of the wall.
Yeah, you literally, yeah. Oh, yeah. Begins what I thought was going to be a boss fight. And you're presented with a quiz. And at this point, I don't think it's really revealed or not, but you're on a game show almost, a TV show the entire time. Again, you don't realize
he's a live streamer.
He is the first in this universe. But after you finish this boss fight, a couple of different weird questions. One of them is like, who does Dr. Alphys have a crush on? A couple of different options. Who did everyone choose? I chose my character. I think Sammy was my character's name. Anybody else choose anything different?
John?
I chose myself, yeah, because the doctor looked very like, no.
That's who I picked my first playthrough.
I don't remember who I picked my first playthrough.
Does it change anything if you choose yourself? Or not choose yourself? Or you just get the question wrong?
Other than just like your immediate dialogue after that.
Oh, okay.
If you choose yourself, Metaton tells you like it's wrong, but it's a really good guess considering the way she's acting right now and the fact that she's stalking you.
Yeah, because when you walk in the lab, there's literally just a screen that's zoomed in on just your head.
Like, right, yeah.
Just like this. Like, it's crazy.
So there's a couple of different things you can interact with in the lab that give you a bit more information. Some comic books that are on shelves that are titled Human History, and as you read them, they're like not at all like it's kind of like a Galaxy Quest when the aliens tell the people they've been watching human TV shows to learn about human history. Like
makes sense.
Island is one of those that they've learned from. But
one
before
thing.
we go too far, go ahead.
One of the very important things is that she upgrades your phone. So now you have social media.
Yeah, and she gives you Twitter.
Yeah. She gives you
I'm just going to say this now. That's my least favorite part of this game, is her spamming your phone while you're trying to go through this section.
Yeah, it's very annoying.
Like, the Papyrus stuff in Waterfall was okay, because it was spaced out enough, and he's, like, really funny. But, like, Alphys definitely has some redeeming qualities, but overall she's a very obnoxious character, and it was very annoying Like I remember the first time I played it being annoyed by it, and so doing it again, I was like, oh my gosh.
And I know I'm skipping ahead, but eventually she's like,
Fine.
"Oh yeah, I forgot I added you to my social media. Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh,
Like, oh,
Yeah.
you've been
So,
seeing
you know, your
everything I've been
posts.
doing.
right, yeah, your
But
90
it's like
posts."
I might be in the minority with this. I don't think I am in this group at least. I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's endearing. I don't think it's interesting. Like her entire character is just annoying to me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she's supposed to be
Creepy.
annoying to a point,
Mhm.
but it was past the point. Like for 2 areas, it's near harassment that you're having to deal with her. And by the time that I was finally done, I didn't want to play the game anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not joking. It killed most of the momentum for me because there's some points where 2 times in a room you're being hit with dialogue boxes from her, and it's just I don't know how intentional it was. Maybe it was trying to space out this last bit of the game because this last bit of the game feels way shorter as far as what you're actually doing in the areas compared to the first like 3 areas or so.
Yeah. But she is also trying, like, there's a story point behind it. She's trying way too hard to be like your hero, to be your
Yeah.
savior. Because like, I mean, just jumping to the end of the section, we can go back, but you find out that she created Metaton and is like instructing him to obstruct you and block your way so that she can stop him and save you, so that you'll like her and think that she's a hero just because she. I mean, she's lonely. She sits in her lab. There's like dirty dishes everywhere and just piles of unfinished work. Like, so
Yeah.
it's not like they're just her character trait is just spamming you because she's annoying. She's spamming you because she's trying to be something she's not, and she's overdoing it to impress you. But that doesn't make it less annoying.
Yeah.
I think she's trying to be relatable to the kind of people, especially on like I don't know, like Tumblr weebs, who are much more comfortable in an online community by just like spamming messages. But if they were in, 2 people in real life, these 2 people just like wouldn't communicate at all, just because they're more comfortable on Twitter or Tumblr or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's
I
the
think
kind of
you're right
crowd
about
she's being
that.
relatable to.
And like the whole name of the creation that she's made is Metaton, a ton of meta.
Hmm.
Like he
I
constantly
put that
breaking like
together.
do what? Oh, you
I
didn't
remember
put
that
that
I put
together.
that together. I was like, "Yep, that sounds like
Yeah,
a name for a robot."
it's constantly breaking the fourth wall and like
Mm-hmm.
and, like it makes sense again narratively, because I do think most of the choices are intentional. But man, it was really ham-fisted,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
again at this point, there's some frustrating bosses coming up too that really kind of like topped it off for me that made me really like closest to rage quitting I've gotten since playing like a probably FromSoft game, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk about that in a bit.
I'm curious who you mean because I think the bosses in this section might be my favorites in the game.
Yeah, maybe if I wasn't on a time crunch, but I was trying to
Yeah.
finish this in a hurry.
So
So
one
We
second,
finished like an hour before we recorded.
one thing I want to say is that the one of the enemies here is just an airplane with a hat on.
yeah,
It's Tsundere airplane.
Fender plane.
And
plane.
it's just a whole like passenger plane with a
Yeah,
hat on.
yeah.
It has a crush on you.
It's just
maybe.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you get really close to it but don't touch it, it like blushes.
Yeah. It's very funny.
And then
You
instead of
play
just
your
like,
tune. You're too close to me.
and instead of just like, like turning like transparent like all the other enemies do, she like teleports to this like as far away as possible.
Yeah.
So as far as like this area itself, I feel like this area probably has more puzzles in it than a lot of the other areas. In
I like those puzzles
between,
too.
yeah, there's some really cool puzzles that are kind of like as a kid you'd have the puzzle you'd have to like shift around blocks to like make
Mhm.
like a shape.
I'd play a
Or
whole
like
game of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I think those are fun. There's some cool characters along the way who are either stuck or just chilling out. One guy just doesn't want to go to work, so he's just sitting around.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess spaced throughout are these little asides with Metaton, where one's a cooking show, where he's going to use like human soul or essence of human
Mhm.
soul or something like that to bake a cake, and Dr. Alphys comes in to save the day. And if one of you wants to talk about that, you can take it.
I mean, it's a fun thing where you have to like stop a bomb eventually, but my favorite takeaway from that moment is, it's presented like a TV show, so there's like a banner across the bottom of the screen that has like news headlines, and he's like talking about how he's about to kill you, and one of the headlines is "Video games do cause violence," and
Yeah,
that just really made me crack up.
they do, 100%.
It's just really clever writing. I think Metaton's hilarious.
Yeah,
Like
I think so too.
There's the cooking show too, where he asks you to get like eggs, milk, and flour, and you go get it, and then he just decides to use you as human meat, like you just said, and then it goes over, and he like, there's like something else you needed to get on a cabinet on the other side of the screen, and it just shoots up into the sky, and then Alphys is just like, oh, you need to get this in less than a minute. Let me turn your cell phone into a jetpack. And
Yeah.
your cell phone just flies out of you, turns out, and it folds out into like a jetpack, and you just fly into the sky. And then Metaton is
turns
like
into
trying
like
to
a
pelt
shooter.
you. Yeah, Metaton's trying to pelt you with the eggs and the flour and the milk that you just got for him,
And
trying to stop you while you're trying to get it.
It's at that point when you realize you can just go back to the hole you fell in and use your jetpack to get out. The end.
Go all the way back.
It's interesting that, at this point, I don't think I really understood what was going on, but in discussion, it makes even more sense. It's like, of course, this was scripted, but like, everything's just way too convenient, and
All reality TV is scripted, writer.
Exactly.
That's what I was about to say.
We can
the
talk
underlying
about
message.
that more, but it's a couple more puzzles through the area, and I mean, he's constantly being stopped by Dr. Alphys, annoying me and Kurt, at least, maybe some of the others, who knows. But my favorite part of this area were ultimately the Royal Guards
Yeah,
that
buddy.
you get to see earlier.
These are great.
I just wrote
I love the gay
Armor
Royal
Bros
Guards.
on my notes.
What? The gay bros?
I wrote Armor Bros.
Oh, either way.
Yeah.
um, yeah, so, I mean, does anyone want to talk about them in particular? I don't want to hog this. This is fun. No?
Go for
Okay, I'll hit it.
it.
So,
I was on
there's,
mute. I didn't notice.
Oh, do you want to take it, John?
Sure, yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, you have to you ask one of them to clean their armor because it's dirty or something, and then they take off the armor and you clean it. You have to just hit the shine spots to clean the armor, and then I think after that, does the other one start like sweating or something?
Mhm.
And you're like, oh, what's going on here? And then you can whisper to him like, hey, what's wrong? And he's like, I like that guy. And
I
then
gotta tell you something, bro.
yeah, go ahead. I don't remember what they say.
No.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, just he's very, very loving, very tender towards his
Yeah.
bro.
Then they like
About,
ask him to go get ice cream or something.
Yeah.
And then the
It's
battle
very
ends.
sweet.
Yeah.
In the guide that I have pulled up to follow along because I didn't take any notes, one of the lines that he says is, I love standing here with you, bouncing and waving our weapons in sync.
But that's like a fun little moment that helped me kind of get through this area. Another thing I've talked about a little bit, I was so tired when I was doing this, and there's a little puzzle where you have to click the flip buttons to change the direction of the fence, which were
I got
the way
stuck
they're going
there
to
for a
shoot you.
minute.
I did
Yeah.
too. It was
did too.
like it was midnight, and as simple as it was, I was sitting there counting, and I was going 1,
Yes.
2, 3, 4. And then I'd do it, and it would be wrong, and I was, oh my god, I was getting so frustrated,
I was
frustrated
too.
for no reason.
It
It's good to
reminded me.
know.
It reminded me of being a kid in the Team Rocket hideouts and just being like, I don't know, I'm gonna step on this switch, and then it just and you just
Yeah.
hope for the best. That's what it felt like, even as an adult.
Eventually, I did get it, but I had to get up, walk like out of the room. I went and got me like a few snacks, went to the bathroom, came back, and the game was still going, and I sat down and did it my first try, and I was like, okay, that's I guess the way I need to approach this is to breathe rather than just getting angrier and angrier. So you end up seeing Metaton again. There's another little section where you end up having like a mini game where you have to diffuse some bombs, and I don't really have anything interesting about that. The next section, though, that's unless one of y'all wants to talk
I would
about
say
that,
it was interesting, but no
it
big comments. It was fun.
dragging on for me at that point. At that point, it was past funny again, and I was just like, okay, let's get out of here.
Hmm.
But there's the next section where you end up seeing a spider who's having a bake sale. So of course, I was like, yeah, I gotta support my spider friends. I bought some spider pastries earlier, spider donut or something like that, and of course it's 9,999 gold. I'm like,
Yeah,
I ain't doing that. Can't do that. So I moved
John
on.
could have.
John, did you buy
John apparently
buy
had the
them here?
money.
No, I had spent all my money on a nice set of armor, and I think I had like 100 gold after that.
I just want to shout out the Link's Awakening reference. There's a croissant at the bake sale, and the sprite is literally just the power bracelet sprite from Link's Awakening.
That's
And I
fun.
think it even says something like, "Oh, this looks like it would give you strength if you wore it." Oh wait,
Yeah,
it's
it
just a
does say
croissant.
that. I remember reading that.
Yeah. So as
That's
Link's
funny.
Awakening is one of my favorite games of all time, so I just really appreciated that.
That was fun. There's a lot of references through here, and I obviously don't have time to stop talk about all of them, but a few more puzzles through here, and eventually you end up hitting Muffet, who is spider lady, spider cooking lady.
Favorite
It's
boss in the game.
This is a hard boss fight for me because again, I was very tired. I ended up having to give up, but I really enjoyed this one. This one might have been one of my favorite boss fights once I had a moment to again breathe and come to it fresh. Does anyone want to talk about it? How this is kind of different from some of the other fights?
This is the character I killed.
Yeah, she puts your heart in a spider web, and you have to avoid spiders as it moves down
Yeah.
and around. And
So
Yeah.
instead of being able to move like freely in like 8 directions, you can only jump between 3 different webs, and you kind of bounce up and down to dodge attacks. I think it was a really cool change of pace. And there's a spot where her like giant pet cupcake spider tries to eat you, and the lines, instead of just being a box of 3, like extends upward endlessly, and you just have to like run from the spider while dodging other things. Which is a really cool fight.
I looked
Music
it
is
up later.
amazing too.
I thought this was a particularly hard boss, and I was curious what other people thought it. And consensus is this is like one of the hardest bosses in the game.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
feel a
died
little
twice
bit
on this
better
boss
about it.
in this playthrough.
Really? Okay, gotcha. So, before we talk about Joseph, I think I spared her. Did anyone else spare her?
I want to know what John did. Because John,
yeah.
you were,
Mhm.
yeah. What did you do?
I spared her. Yeah. Hmm.
You spared her.
Mhm.
Okay, so the way it worked in, I assume, our playthroughs, is that after you fight her for a while, a spider comes in with a message, like a letter for Muffet, informing her that the player character bought something from the spider bake sale in the ruins and is therefore a friend of the spiders and a supporter of the cause. And Muffet's like, "Oh, my bad, misunderstanding." And the fight just like ends.
Yeah, that's what happened
If
for me. I bought something from the bake sale.
Oh, I thought you said you didn't buy something from the
I
bake
did.
sale.
I didn't have it on me because I had used
Let's
I
say,
had
did y'all
used it or
use
something.
No.
Yeah, okay.
But
I thought you said you didn't buy something, and I
No,
was really interested
I
to see
definitely did. Yeah.
what would happen. Was that you, Joe, that said you didn't?
if you eat it at the beginning of the boss fight, it will end immediately.
Yeah. I read that after the fact because people were saying, yeah, it's either the easiest in the game or it's one of the hardest, depending on whether or not you have that snack
I
or not.
totally
And
forgot
so
about that.
you killed her? That's what you said you did?
Yeah.
Because
Or,
Can you spare her if you didn't buy the snack?
that's what I
Or
wanted
did
to
you
know.
choose to kill her?
I don't know if I'm at liberty to say why I chose to kill her at this time.
Joe doesn't like spiders, is what it is.
Interesting.
Well, I did not kill her. And after, I think it's 3 times of being chased by the muffin spider pet, you're spared. But the letter from the other spider is saying that you bought from the other bake sale. After that, I'm going to move on. Let's show you want to take it.
I don't have anything else to say about Muffet, but
Okay.
going on afterwards, I think, is when Metaton gives you one final puzzle, which is a reference to the puzzle that Papyrus tries to make you do at the very beginning.
With all the different colored tiles, yeah.
Yep, because Alphys actually designed that puzzle. So Mettaton throws it back at you again. He re-describes what every tile does, and then he gives you a time limit of like 1 minute or 90 seconds or something to try and go through everything, and it lets you actually
It's
try to do the
60
puzzle.
seconds.
Yeah,
I think it's impossible though.
it is impossible.
I don't
yeah.
think it is it.
Like I ran to a point where I was like, "There's nowhere I can go."
Yeah, I did that
It's
too. It wouldn't let me go anywhere.
I hit
It
that
could.
too, but I was thinking that there was probably a way out, but maybe I dead ended myself.
There might
Like-
be a way out. I've always dead ended my way, and I also don't know if it's actually random for each playthrough as well. I've never seen it completed anyway.
I'll look it up later. I'm sure there's a way.
Probably.
There might not be, but I think it would be fun if there was a way to actually get through, maybe special dialogue or something. But
Maybe it is.
yeah, Alphys saves you, and you end up after this section. You get a fun little singing section. We can't forget from Metatron or Metatron.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful song.
Megatron, yeah.
It kind of fits with like the rhythm of the music, and like the notes themselves kind of fits with like if you're singing along, it can almost work.
Syllabically, it lines up really well.
Yeah. There's a couple points where I'm like, maybe a stretch, but like it's still fun. You get a nice, beautiful. Let me see. I think Metaton's in a dress. And you have some like rose petals or something falling, but
It's very
after that-
reminiscent of Final Fantasy VI.
yeah, that's what it is.
I'm sure it was a reference.
It
You
honestly
end
looks
up-
like it.
The core is where you go next, and here you have another chance to go on a date with Sans, and not really date as much as have dinner with him. Not sure if that's something that's optional or not, or something that can be skipped, but I did it. Anybody else?
Yeah, I did too.
know if you can avoid that, but I did it.
What did he talk to you about, guys?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I think this is the point that he explains that he enjoys telling jokes and that he was a sentry and he got bored and he was knocking on a door that he found and told some knock jokes through the door. And I realized, and this is the only time I actually kind of felt bad about it, but I realized at this point that he's talking about his relationship with Toriel, who he doesn't even know the name of, but he knows that she was, someone who could keep him company.
Yeah, I felt really bad whenever he was talking about that. I was like, yeah, wherever she is, I hope she's okay. I was like, yeah.
This is the only time these guys felt bad about murdering the innocent
only
goat
time.
mom. Is when somebody else was like, man, really liked that person.
She's trying to hold you hostage. For all I know, I'm like a 6-year-old child that she's
Yeah.
trying to keep. I mean, like,
What if
come
she
on.
was gonna eat us? We don't know.
This is also the part where I don't remember what the like the condition he lays out for you, but he's basically like, if you had not behaved this way, then, and then it like spells it out in slow motion and says you would be dead where you stand. And he's like, oh, is that actually scary? Because so far he's just been like a goofball.
Yeah, but he
goes
goes very serious. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say
he
that his
explains
pupils disappear in the little text boxes.
Yeah, they do. I couldn't tell if his eyes were supposed to be closed or his pupils were gone, but yeah. He explains as
supposed
well
to
that
look scary.
Toriel told him or made him promise, and he didn't want to, but
That's what it
promised to
was.
protect the humans that came through.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the only reason why you were still alive is because of that. But moving on from there, you're actually in the core. There's a couple of different.
Before we move on to the core,
Yeah, go ahead.
between the Hotlands and the core, there's like a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and on the outside of the hotel, there's a shop down the alley. Did y'all go to that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did y'all buy the mysterious key?
I did.
I don't remember.
I did. I don't know. I never used it though. I didn't feel like having to backtrack, but yeah, I did buy it.
Can I tell you what it is? Give you some context for a character? Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. How big of a spoiler would it be?
I mean, it's something that you could have done in a normal run, and it tells you the origins of, like, it gives you a backstory to a character.
Then I'm gonna say no. I hate to do that, but I do actually maybe want to play this again. So that's the only reason I'm a bit apprehensive.
Well, I'll just say buy the key, and then the key is used for the house that's beside Nafsabluke's house.
Okay, yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Okay.
It's worth it.
I assumed it was for that one because it was the only one I could remember that was locked, but I didn't
Mhm.
really like having to backtrack at that
Oh,
point.
I
'cause
understand.
was still on a time crunch. And it became increasingly hard later in the game to have to actually backtrack. There's still abilities to kind of jump back, but you'd still have to do a bit of walking, and I was like,
Hmm.
no.
There's the
But
boatman too, but it's
the
still
boatman.
it's a lot.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little tedious. I get it.
But there's a couple of different fun enemies in the core. This area is again plagued with, I think, and maybe not more annoying, but just as bad phone calls from Dr. Alphys just keep on going. I think this is what really killed me. If it was one area, I think I could have dealt with it. But having two areas of the back-to-back incessant phone calls and
Yeah.
messages from Alphys is what I was like, this has to stop. I'm so sick of it. I wish I could have gone back and killed her. I guess I'll do in a genocide playthrough. But
You don't even
there's
fight her.
Yeah, I don't think I don't
You
think
don't
you
have the
can. Just
time
kind of
to
fight her.
figure it out.
I'll kill her. Don't worry. But there's a couple of different fun enemies here. There's Night, who you can sing to sleep. Magic. I mean, I don't really think he's
annoying.
particularly
That's all I
interesting,
remember about him.
but Night is fun though. A couple of different, not really puzzles, I guess, but like kind of movement specific areas where you have to move and stop because the power is going on and off, while you're also being hit with these blue lasers that will damage you if you move. That's a little fun. And I think really what caps this area off is the Metaton boss fight.
One
Does
quick
anyone want
little
to talk about
aside
this?
before we get to that, just something I'm reading right now. If you did all the singing with Shiren in the waterfall, singing to Night will only take 2 turns instead of a third turn.
Got a little practice in.
I guess.
Huh.
It's fun.
How about
I just
that?
think that's funny. But yeah, anyway, back to Metaton's boss fight.
You're good. Does anyone want to take that? Discuss it?
So,
How about you, Joe?
Yeah, go
Okay.
ahead, Joe.
So Metaton will encounter you in his typical robot form, and Alphys will give you a phone call, and she'll say, "Hey, Metaton's blocking me out of the room, but he has a switch on his back that will just turn him off." So after that happens, one of the actions that you can take is turn him around, or you can say like, "Hey, look over there," and Metaton will just turn around, and there will be a big switch on his back with arrows pointing to it that's like, "Don't flip this," and you can flip the switch, and Metaton will do a little oh yeah, and then he'll transform into a sexualized
Dumbass.
version of himself, I
Yeah.
guess.
Metrosexual Metaton.
Meta.
He's got like hair covering one of his eyes, his legs. He's like wearing super high heels and tight pants and everything. And then the music
Before
just
you
goes
go
crazy.
into that, though,
Yeah.
I think you should explain why, like the significance of that. Like right before the fight happens, there's the doors are locked. Why are the doors locked? You get an explanation.
Does it? I don't remember that.
That's when it
He's played the
reveals.
game so many times, he doesn't even know the significance. But
Guess so.
That's when he reveals that like Dr. Alphys has been playing you the whole time. That's the big reveal, and Alphys is supposed to like come through the door and save you again one last time, and cause you to give up on your journey to return to the world and just hang out with her forever. But he's like, nah, screw that. I'm just gonna kill you, and the ratings are gonna be amazing, and then I'm gonna steal your soul and become a star in the human world.
Yeah, I probably skipped through that dialogue this time. I was doing that a lot in my playthrough.
This boss fight, I think, later could be one of my favorites, but this was a very frustrating one for me because I got so close to the end multiple times. I think this is a pretty hard boss fight in the grand narrative of things. This might have been the hardest for me, actually. I don't know.
I think that's fair. I think it might be the hardest in the game.
It is definitely a hard one.
And it has more layers to it than most of the other boss fights. And you can talk about that, Ryder.
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say, initially when you're first fighting Metaton, and you do get to actually go into combat once or twice previously, attacks won't do any damage. You try to attack, it just misses entirely. Once Metaton turns into, I think, Metaton X, you now have the ability to deal damage, but the way the mechanics work, I believe, is there's a ratings meter that shows the amount of people that are currently watching. Maybe not that exactly, but just the ratings of the TV program, and it starts around 4,000 or something like that. And there's a bar that shows where the current ratings are like peaking versus what they're currently doing versus the cap. And I believe the way that it works is the boss fight ends once you hit the cap. So the goal is to survive, but also give a diverse enough performance between attacking, making fun of Metaton, doing poses. It's this really, really weird mix of stuff, and things like you take enough damage, but you eat a glam burger, which is a branded snack. You get plus 500 ratings because people love seeing the product placement on their TV
Right.
shows. So it's such a weird mix of stuff. It's funny, but the boss fight can be so intense at some points. I wasn't, I think, able to properly enjoy it in the moment because I was just thinking, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, throughout a lot of it.
The actions you choose impact, or rather how you're playing can impact what actions you choose to take, because with a lot of bosses you're just hitting spare endlessly and dodging attacks. With this one you're trying to get the ratings higher, so there's one where you scoff at the audience or something, and you're basically like, oh, I'm not going to get hit at all this turn, and if you manage to avoid all damage, then the ratings go up higher than they would otherwise. And there's also things where there's another one where if you take damage on the next turn, the ratings will go higher, and so you can be honest with yourself and how you're playing, and it'll change how the boss fight plays out, if nothing else, in length and in flavor.
The ratings will also drop slowly if you're just taking your time on your own turn without doing anything.
You gotta move quick.
I think it's a really fun boss fight. It's very interesting. It's probably the most, up to this point, the most different, just because there's so many working pieces to it.
Did you say it turns into a shooter yet? Flips your heart upside down and turns into a little shooter plane
earlier, but yeah. Kurt, do you want to talk about kind of that and where it comes in, I guess?
Well, it's just, so throughout the whole game, your character is represented by just a little heart in a box, and you can just move around the box. And we talked about how Papyrus makes the heart turn blue, so where you can only jump and you can't move around freely, and then Muppet puts you on a grid. Well, Metaton's thing is that it takes the heart shape and turns it upside down, which I can't really do with my hands. There we go. And so you have a blaster, and you are shooting things that are flying towards you. And it really changes how you play the game. It feels like a completely different system, because it's introducing combat in a different way, because you're shooting debris that's falling towards you and not just dodging. You are not just for lack of a less ironic word, a pacifist during this fight.
Yeah. And I think as the fight progresses, you're shooting Metaton's heart and blowing off arms and then legs, and this kind of gives you a meter of how the fight is progressing at this point. Eventually, after you get to enough of these, little snippets of boosting the ratings over and over and over, once ratings get high enough, I think it's 10,000 is where it kind of caps. Metaton tells you that the ratings have never been this high, and he's going to kill you. At which point, he's going to take in a final phone call from a fan who's watching. And as he does that, they explain how much they love Metaton. Keeps on getting these calls over and over again, and kind of changes his outlook on it. And eventually, he just, I guess, doesn't want to fight anymore and lets his battery die. At which point, Dr. Alphys comes in and is clearly upset that you've killed Metaton. Dr. Alphys realizes you actually haven't killed Metaton, just that Metaton's batteries have died. This is actually, I think, the last time we really hear from Dr. Alphys, which is a huge relief to me, at least. I'm so glad for it to be over with. Anything else on this boss fight before we proceed to the next area?
Joe, you don't have to answer, but did you guys recognize who the first call was from?
I don't remember.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I felt like it was something familiar, but I don't remember.
Okay. I won't say anything. I'll let you enjoy that on your
While
own
you go.
time.
So this wraps up the end of the core area, which moves us over to the castle and New, which is really the last stretch of the game. And the next area you go through has a lot of the color stripped out of it in a way that's pretty uncharacteristic for this game. There's a lot of muted colors, but it's still very vibrant. It just, the very diverse amount of color that you see in any given area. This area is gray almost entirely, with little pops of color that you see later. But as you're walking through, I'm not sure really what to call this. It's called Castle, I think is this area, but it's corridor. It's just a long path looking over a cityscape, and there's not really much music here. Some points there's no music at all. Other points it's pretty sparing instrumentation, and it feels intentional. It feels like it's lifeless. It feels empty. We know there are people still living here in the area because we're told earlier that people are trying to get up because they live in the capital. They live near the castle itself. So that's not really what's going on. But again, it feels like the life has been taken out of the area.
I think it's supposed to kind of represent the loss of hope. It gets more and more hopeless if you're just paying attention to the dialogue and the scenario, even though there's like zany transforming robots and spider boss fights and random stuff. It's still a pretty desperate situation for the monsters as a species. And you're kind of at the crux of it all, where you're in the capital where the king lives, where the king has made this vow to free his people through violence, and it's just very grim.
Yeah. And it's especially grim because throughout the game they've always told you that Asgore is such a friendly dude and everybody loves Asgore, but he's taken on this vow that can only be achieved through violence. And as you get closer to the castle and everything, it gets more drab and it gets more hopeless because everybody wants to leave the mountain, but you have to do something just horribly terrible to get out of the mountain.
As you continue through this area, you eventually hit a place that is called New Home that looks a lot like Toriel's home. And something we didn't really discuss earlier, but in Toriel's home, you're allowed to explore freely, and you of course have your bedroom. There's Toriel's room, and then there's a locked room that says it's under renovation. Upon entering this house, new home, you can see that it's still drab, but there's pops of color where there were flowers earlier. Used to, there was only one yellow flower now in Toriel's house, and the rest are just diverse groups of plants. But here, there's yellow flowers providing color in the area. It's very weird, almost like it's frozen in time or in stone, unmoving by time or anything else. As you explore the home, though, you can see that the things you interact with, other than the plants, a lot of times give you very similar descriptions. This home is almost exactly the same, even down to the fur that's stuck in the sink, the stove that says looks like someone uses magic to cook with.
Did y'all examine the mirrors in both houses? Because
Sure, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's just, again, this whole game presents itself as a very like bubbly, like erratic at times, colorful narrative, but like deep down there's just some very serious themes about life and death and what you're willing to do to be free or to help your people, even if it costs you your like humanity or monster humanity. So there's some kind of heavy themes in the background, or not even in the background, but below the colorful visuals. But in Toriel's house in the tutorial, there's a mirror, and if you like examine it, it just says it's you, and it's like, okay, that's cute. And then you are back to this mirror image of the home, except for, like Ryder described it, it's drab with just these golden flowers for pops of color, and you find the same mirror and you look into it, and it says, despite everything, it's still you. And the whole, every time you hit a save point in this game, it's like the view of the leaves falling to the ground fills you with determination. The thought that the mouse might one day get the cheese fills you with determination. The roaring sound of the lava or the strange laboratory fills you with determination. The whole thing is your character trying to get home despite everything that's happening around them. And so I don't know, it just gets really, to me, like really heavy at the end, and like makes you start feeling things that are unexpected for a game that started out with a skeleton having a crush on you.
100% agree. And part of this is like the rooms themselves, and as you enter the house, you start being what seems initially like attacks from enemies that you've encountered along the way, and it's actually in chronological order of the enemies you encountered from the beginning, describing to you the story that you haven't been told yet, regarding how the first human came to under the mountain, and a human that fell in and couldn't get back out, and paired with the music and the surroundings, it just provides a very, very bleak reflection of kind of what's going on.
Do you or John want to briefly summarize that story?
Well, either one, any of y'all can talk about it. I've talked a good bit at this point, but
I'll
I
let
just
one of
don't
y'all
want
do
to
it.
spoil anything extra. Because in your first playthrough, you do the true, you do the neutral route no matter what, and then your second playthrough, depending on your actions, it could be something different. And since this was both of ours, not first playthrough, I just don't want to give away anything that wasn't presented to you guys.
Gotcha. I can talk about it if John, you don't really want to.
I was gonna say I don't have the best recollection of it since it's been a while.
Yeah. Essentially, you're told that a human fell into the hole, and the child was found and raised alongside the king and queen's son. Azrael is essentially a brother to this child, or to this monster child. So this monster and human living beside each other peacefully, and they grow up together, loving each other, and I'm sure it's supposed to display the fact that despite how different each of these peoples are, it's not that they're unable to live together, to coexist. It is possible because they do coexist and actually begin to love each other as family. Well, eventually the child becomes sick and says that he wants to go home and see the flowers that were in his home. Again, this is after, I'm not sure if months or years, I can't recall this portion. He becomes sicker and sicker until eventually he dies. Azrael, who's been raised as a brother alongside the child, the human child, becomes distraught over it, and it actually absorbs the human soul. And we've been told earlier in the game, we haven't really mentioned this, that absorbing a human soul, a monster soul, and a human soul together is the only way for someone to pass through the barrier that's preventing the monsters from leaving. I think we're also told that 7 souls merged to monster soul can break the barrier permanently. So I'm guessing that's the distinction here, is 1 monster soul with 1 human soul can allow that monster to pass through. Well, Azrael vows to return his body to the place that he was missing, the place he wanted to see one last time that he was never able to. So Azrael goes above ground and returns his body to his homeland in a field of flowers. And as he gets there, the story becomes too familiar, unfortunately, to what humans we've collectively done to each other when we see someone that's different than us. They're afraid of him, and they attack him. And he refuses to fight back, leaves and goes home and dies when he gets home, pretty much immediately upon arrival. And this does very different things to the king and the queen. King Asgore is enraged and vows to break the barrier and to collect human souls and eventually ravage the human world after he becomes a god in a way that shows them the pain that he's been caused throughout his life, and all monsters have been caused throughout their lives. Versus the queen, whose name is not mentioned, but pretty easy to infer, is Queen Toriel, wishes to live a peaceful life. And I think it's a very interesting thing here that we're presented maybe with this dynamic we're given early on of the pacifist versus the genocidal run. Toriel is the first person that we meet who shows us true unconditional kindness and wants to live this peaceful life and wants humans and monsters to exist peacefully, to coexist despite the own pain she's felt in her own life. And it's pretty sad. I do hate that this story isn't touched on earlier. It might be hinted at some points, but it hits really hard right here at the end. And in this house that's reflecting Toriel's own home, I'm left thinking, did he build this house to mirror the house he lost? Or did Toriel build her house? And I like to think that Toriel's house existed first because it's so close to the hole where the human was fell through initially, and that he built this castle afterward. But
so the ruins were where the monsters lived first. Like all the civilization monsters lived first. They called it home, and then eventually, for various reasons, they ventured farther and farther out until eventually they settled New Home, which several NPCs make fun of Asgore's naming conventions. So yeah, he built it as like a copy, trying to reclaim what he once had.
And you can see that I don't recall this being a thing in Toriel's home. I think there was only one twin bed. I might be wrong, but I do know for a fact that there's two twin beds.
I think you're right.
It's very intentional.
Yeah, I think
twin beds in the child's bedroom here in New Home. The queen's room is off limits for renovation, but the king's room, which has a king's size bed in it, is open and you can actually go in there. It's all very intentional. It's poetic. It's sad. It's very sad. But continuing to explore this area after you've kind of looked through each of these rooms, you see that this area is literally identical to what you've seen before, the same corridor or whatnot under it. At the end of it, you end up reaching an area with an elevator that allow you to backtrack a little bit if you want, or to continue forward through this hall that the color shines back in, this radiant, gold, kingly gold, almost, the color of like the sun, if you will. Maybe there's something there with the fact that, it's this underground area, as drab as it is, and there's this brilliant, light that almost resembles the sun coming in, or sunset, really. You meet Sans in this golden corridor, and he kind of explains the journey that you've had up to this point. I'm sure there's a lot of intention with this, depending on how you played the game. I didn't really think there was anything he told me that really stood out. I don't know if anyone else experienced anything considering this like a neutral run, but he's saying, I'd be judged for every action. Maybe he's talking about in future playthroughs, but I thought he was going to mean during this playthrough. I don't know, and I don't really want spoilers for other game or playthroughs, but I was just curious if anyone had other dialogue options at this point.
He explains. So at the very beginning of the game, you fight Flowey. He's like the tutorial showing you kind of how combat works, and he tells you like, oh, you have the stat that's LV, that stands for love, and the more you, I don't know if he straight up says like kill, but the more you battle, the higher your level goes. So it's important to make sure you love as many people as you can. And then Sam's reveals to you that LV is level of violence. And then he judges you based on that. I have never had a level of violence above the base, so I don't know what the reaction is otherwise. Does anyone?
I don't think at this point he gives any different reactions, but he also tells you that EXP stands for execution points.
Mm.
So you gain more EXP the more you kill enemies. At this point, my character's level was level 7 because I killed Muffet.
I think
Same.
we
I
were
was level 7
5,
as
right?
well.
Oh, did you kill things other than the goat mom?
Yeah.
Oh, I ended up being level
That's what I was
5
saying.
from that fight, and then
So what happens?
it never
I'm
went
sorry.
up again.
What happens at the end of the conversation then?
Nothing, and that's
Yeah,
why I was kind
nothing.
of shocked. I was expecting a little bit more, but no, nothing for me at least. Other than he tells me I was going to be judged for it, and so I was like, I
Right.
was waiting
Yeah.
for something to happen at that point, or maybe the
Mhm.
next room. But as
So-
far as I'm aware, nothing on this playthrough is done.
Yeah,
I don't
in
think
in my eye, I didn't kill anything other than my required fight because I thought it was part of the story. So I was like, oh, well, I didn't kill anything, so he's not going to do anything. All right, cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had killed like 3 minor monsters that were all accidents, but whoops.
they fell
Um,
onto my frying pan.
They really did, Really what it was is, like I said, like one of them I think was like if you hit once they die, and the other 2 I crit both times, and it was just immediately 120 damage, and I was like,
Oh,
whoops, well, done now.
that does remind me, very quickly going back to Muffet, this is when I discovered that as I was fighting Muffet, I was only able to do like, I don't know, like 70, 100 damage per turn, but her dialogue options kept continuing onward, and it did get to the point where the spider would come up on screen. They would be like, hey, this person's chill, we saw them before and they don't hate spiders. And then I attacked her again and it did like 1,000 damage. So it still went
Gotcha.
through her entire like dialogue sequence, and then just like one-shotted her once it was done.
Mm. You hate spiders, good to know. Surprised
Shoot.
John didn't kill her. So after this encounter with Sans, you're taken pretty much to the final boss fight of the game. Well,
What's
true boss fight of the game.
What's great is how you just walk into the throne room. He's like, "Oh, hey, how's your day?"
Oh, hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
I imagine
very
he has like a
polite.
thick Midwest accent.
Oh, hey,
Thanks.
how's it
Yeah.
going, man? But yeah, I mean, it kind of fits with everyone else's description. He's fuzzy, and he's furball. And he's just a nice guy. He's very polite, and it's kind of sad. And he's like, "Yeah, I hate I'm gonna have to do this. I guess if you want to, let's go to the next room."
Whenever you're ready.
And before that, did anyone go to the far right and down the staircase?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I did. That was very funny.
I didn't do it initially because I was like, I don't know. Because there's a couple points where I forced myself into pushing forward on accident because I didn't stop to talk to somebody and then try to come back and they were gone. So I did go to that room first because it was first in order, and then I went back down, and yeah, the coffin's in there. As far as I can recall, you can only interact with your own coffin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's blocking the way.
But there's
Yeah.
6 others that are presumably full.
The other one
I
has your
kinda
name on
wanted
it,
to read
right?
them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I like that your heart was the same color as your actual, like the heart on it.
Oh,
was the
yeah.
same color as your actual heart. Yeah.
Mhm.
But moving on to the actual fight against Asgore, like we talked about earlier, he's very polite. He makes it clear he doesn't want to fight, but he's too close at this point, and he's had to cause this suffering in order to make the world better. He can't allow monsters to continue to suffer. And as the fight begins, like the coolest thing that happens in the game is he turns his trident down and brings it down on the mercy button, completely preventing you from being able to spare him in the fight.
Mhm.
Which is really cool. And the fight begins, and I'd say that this is one of the more difficult fights. just because of the amount of projectiles kind of on the screen, but it's not as hard as I was anticipating it to be. As far as I can remember, you actually use your normal heart, right? There's no special
Yeah.
colors or anything on this. I
There's
think like one of the
There's one. No, use your normal heart. Never mind.
And
So-
there's one attack where he has a blue attack
Yeah,
and,
that's
and an orange attack.
I'd say the hardest part of this fight is just the learning curve on how to use the actual attack feature, since I've
Yeah.
only used it on one other fight.
Yeah. My very
Oh, you're
first
an
time
expert.
playing this, I died several times because I never fought him because I was under the impression that you could, defeat every character in the game without ever fighting them.
Hmm.
It took me a few tries before I just like phoned a friend and I was like, "Hey, what do I do here?" And he was like, "Fight him. You can't spare him." And I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
okay."
they try to make it as dramatic as possible, so I
Mhm.
just
And it
assumed,
works.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
have to fight. Yeah.
it's really intense because you don't want to do it, especially if you choose to not kill throughout the whole playthrough, and you're like, you're not giving me any choice here, man.
Right, yeah.
And Asgore also feels as if he has no choice. It's just
Mhm.
a battle of wills at that point.
Mm-hmm. I like also that the game presents you with multiple save points through this.
Mhm.
I think it knows that you're probably going to die a bunch, so
Yeah,
there's like a
that-
save right before.
that's what
the
makes
combat
it
reason.
Not as challenging as the others, in my opinion.
Mhm.
It's less tedious when you die,
Right.
so it doesn't feel as bad.
So once you actually begin this fight, it kind of scales in difficulty like others. I think one of the cooler moments of the fight is it's kind of pairing up these things you've had to learn throughout the game. One of them being the difference between orange and blue. I can't recall if I've seen orange in a fight at this point, but it gives you nice little visual cues with his eyes blinking blue and orange, so you have to learn the pattern. It's still, I think, ridiculously hard because of how fast it is to
Right, yeah.
dodge them. But he doesn't do as much damage, I feel like, as some of the other bosses.
Especially
So
when you have
maybe-
really good armor on.
Yeah. The orange is a reference to when you're in, I guess, the core,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
when you're going through
Or
the little
lasers.
laser beams and Alphys is telling you what to do.
Mhm.
I don't think you've seen it in a fight until then, but that's what it's kind of calling back to.
Yeah, and you have to. It's kind of frustrating because you have to move through that,
Mhm.
and then you have to stop. But it happens so fast.
Very
The blue to orange,
instantaneous.
the blue to orange. Yeah, so you literally have to be like just on it. Like
I just picked my
I can't
poison.
get-
Whichever one where there was more of, I just did that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like I'm either just going to be moving or just sitting still.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if the fight progresses pretty much like any other normal fight. There's not really too much to it at all. But by the end of it, he ends up surrendering a little over halfway through, kind of similar to the Toriel fight. I thought it was another moment where I was gonna like accidentally kill someone because I think you end up dealing a ton of damage, bringing him
Yeah.
right down to almost nothing. And I'm like, I didn't even want. Like I was aware that this could happen. I was trying to spare you. Nice little callback, little reflection to it, and I think one of the most interesting moments about this is at the very beginning of the game. You are down at 1 health and almost killed by Flowey, and Toriel comes in and knocks him out of the way. And now at the very end of the game, when King Asgore is right at his last little bit of health, like 1 hit away from dying, Flowey comes back in and kills King Asgore. It's just like a nice little mirror, again, like home versus new home, seeing these things that look very similar, but there's something off about it. And at that point, you are greeted by Flowey, who absorbs all of the souls of the previous humans and tells you that Flowey will kill you to, I guess, become a god.
Yeah,
And at
break
this
the
point,
barrier and take over the world.
my game crashed, and I was like, "What on earth just happened?" And then, upon reloading the game, I realized, "Oh, that's intentional. Everyone's game is supposed to."
Well, I can tell you, I did not like this boss fight whatsoever, because I'm the one recording gameplay for this, and so, fun fact:
Oh no.
when you're recording gameplay for this and it closes your game, it's a lot more effort to get back into the game and get the recording going again. So yeah, there was that.
Did
Because
you think this was intentional, or were you like
No.
initially angry because you thought it was like I can't believe the game crashed? Now
No,
I'm gonna have to
no.
restart the
So
software.
I thought the game crashed at first, and then Flowey mentions, "Hey, I have control over everything," or something like that. And so I ended up taking out. So during the fight, if you make it and progress through all of that awfulness that is the first wave of the fight.
Wait, are you talking about the Asgore fight or
What?
the fight with?
No, I'm talking about. We made it to Flowey now, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. I just was clarifying.
Yeah. So the awfulness of the Flowey fight, where you just have to hope you're not taking enough damage to die, and then your game shuts off again. You make it to these points where the other hearts come to try to save you and give you some more health. And so I made it to the first one of those, and then I ended up dying before the second one. And I was like, I have to do this 6 times without dying, and I have to reset this recording every time. There is no way I'll be able to do this 6 times. And then I did it again, and I made it through one of them. But the heart was a different color one this time, so I thought maybe it was randomized which heart was first. And then I kept dying, and then I realized that the circle around Mega Flowey or whatever it was that
Mega Flowey, yeah.
that denoted how many hearts it had left was actually going down, even though I was dying. So that's when I decided I was going to finish the game.
Yeah, please don't take this the wrong way, John. But I was curious if it was possible to die in that fight, and what would happen if you did. So thank you for enlightening me. I'm sorry you had trouble with the recording because of it. But
it closes the game. It just closes the game
every time.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah, I had it happen once because I was so focused on like dodging at one point during one of the points where you could actually die that I didn't see the act button pop up for like 0.2 seconds. And by the time I saw it was there, I tried to move over to it. And you can only move your little heart cursor icon so fast, and it was gone. And I got hit like immediately, or like 1 or 2 times, lost my health, and then it was game over. I was very frustrated at that point. But so, John, did you actually finish the game?
Yeah, I finished the game.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was when I realized that the hearts were going down. I was like, all right, I can do this game. If it made me do like all 6 of those without dying, I don't think I would have won the game. Because it did go down, but I just got frustrated because I thought it wasn't. And then when I realized it was going down, I was like, okay, I can do this now. Okay. And then I got 3 in a row, and I was like, why couldn't I have done that the first few times I tried this?
I think this boss fight, presents you with, Mega Flowey, as you said, which is, I think it's actually like Photoshop Flowey. I think
it's called Photoshop Flowey, and he's
hilarious.
Horrifying to see.
It is very horrifying to look at. Yeah,
it's really funny to me. It's just like so gross, and like the boss fight itself. I was trying so hard initially because I was like taking it so seriously. Like I have to dodge, and I realized that wait a minute, my health's not going below a certain point. So I just kind of gave up on that. But
it just felt so out of place, honestly.
Yeah,
it did, because it's the first time that you really see any or this much color, at least. And the fact that it's like these like photoshopped like monstrosity
upside down eyes.
The art style is completely out of left field.
But it's kind of fun because it's like a parody, again, like satire of like JRPGs, of like pretty much every JRPG ends with the main villain turning into a god and becoming some like primordial being with 8 wings and a leg coming out of its head or something. So this kind of fits into that in its own weird way. So it's fun.
So
I wasn't upset about it, but it is very jarring.
Yeah, it is.
Ultimate question: are those the developer's eyes? Are those his actual eyes?
Gotta be.
Could not answer that for you.
I'll look it up later. But I'm gonna assume yes.
I'll look it up now.
There you go.
He might have cut someone else's eyes out. Who knows?
Not again.
But while we wait to talk about that, each of these different there's little pop out sections where you're just about to die, and then all of a sudden, you choose this act button, and it takes you out of a different screen, or takes you to a different screen where all of a sudden you can see one of the souls is there, and this allows you to heal and engage in some form of combat, I guess. I interpret this at least as the other human souls coming to help you out along the way.
That's how I seen
And
it as
taking
well.
that
Mhm.
a step further, I think that some of the items you find throughout the game are the actual items that
Equipment they
belong to
had.
previous humans.
Yeah.
Yeah, the frying pan,
Mhm.
the glove. There's a couple of other things I noticed. So I was like,
Mhm.
the tutu, not the tutu, but the ballet shoes.
Mhm.
I
Toy
think that
knife,
the armor and the weapons that you find were things that belonged to humans who'd fallen down there before you.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
smart.
and you see those through the things that heal you. And I don't know, I think it's intentional. I'd have to go look on it later. But as I was playing, I was like, this is really good, like atmospheric storytelling with through the usage of having those items just kind of drop through the game. Um, really, really cool. But after you go through this 6 times, you end up finally uh, beating Flowey through the combined might of the human souls, I guess, helping you out. Um, after you beat Flowey, um, Flowey kind of shrivels up, and you're left with the choice to kill or spare Flowey. Um, I spared Flowey. This is kind of I guess, this lesson, and whether or not the developer intended this or not. Toby Fox did, but maybe even things that are absolutely horrific, bad people, um, maybe not necessarily deserving of death. Whether or not you'd agree with that or not, I don't know. Whether or not it's true or not, I don't know, but it is interesting to see it play out. And for me personally, choosing to spare him anyway, even though he's talking about all the horrible things he's going to do. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill everyone. I'm going to kill everyone you love. And choosing instead to go that peaceful route. Did anyone choose anything other than that?
I chose to spare.
I also spared him.
All spared.
So one thing I want to ask, I carried a piece of a snowman throughout the entire game to this
Mhm.
up until this point. Did everyone else do that too?
Mhm.
Did.
Okay. Can someone
Fun.
I
remind me
used
what it
mine.
does? Because I don't remember. To bring it to the end of the game, I don't remember what happened.
So after you spare him, you like leave, but you get a phone call from Sans, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds
Okay,
right.
that's what it was.
And there's just like a throwaway line that's like, seems like you made Snowman very happy or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
that's okay. That's
Yeah.
right.
That's it.
Also, it will restore your health if you eat it. Fun
Yeah,
fact.
completely. I used it during the
Oh,
fight.
really? Oh, you almost kept it all the way.
Almost.
Yeah, so at that point, depending on how you ended it, we all chose to spare the flower. It ends the game. You get credits, and then Flowey comes back and told me, at least, I'm assuming he told John and Joseph the same thing. Maybe not Kurt, because I'm assuming he did a pacifist run, but told both of us, or all three of us, that essentially he valued us choosing to spare his life and seeing the value in other beings like that, and challenged us to try to make it back to him without killing anyone, which is very, for someone who played this neutral playthrough accidentally, and if I was playing this for the first time with no knowledge of the game at all, it's very, very intelligent game design, because that tells you don't have to, you're not required to, but it's like, hey, I'm going to give you a little hint. If you could do this again without killing anyone, there might be a benefit to it. It's kind of incentivizing future replays, and I think that's fun. He didn't have to do that, and I think people still would have probably replayed it, but it's fun to kind of give a little breadcrumb trail for people.
I got a similar message because I still got the neutral ending because that's what we were going for, even though I technically did a pacifist run. And he shows up, he talks to you, but his language is a little different. It just says, why don't you go back and do this and try that? And basically just giving you a hint on how to access the alternate routes.
So,
Gotcha.
I actually have a fun fact for you. So when I finished the game and the flower told me that, I was like, all right, well, I'm not doing another playthrough of this game. So I looked it up, and I checked. I said, if my first run through of the game was a pacifist run, can I go talk to the flower again, and it give me the additional options? And it turns out yes. So if you actually did not kill anything your first playthrough, you can go. I think you have to do all that fight again after you've beaten the game, and it will give you the pacifist run, whatever additional stuff it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I learned that indeed I did not have to kill Goat Mom, and my whole run does not count as a pacifist run.
Because you murdered a goat mom.
Exactly, but I didn't know that
She
at the time.
arguably deserved it. Now that we're at the end of the game, got the credits, of course. Good to see everybody who worked on the game. It very small team, even considering the amount of people who helped for localizations and other countries and stuff. Then you, of course, get the post-credit scene that Kurt talked about briefly. I'm sure it's different depending on the playthrough, how you decide to end it. And that kind of wrapped up my playthrough of Undertale. Talking about kind of final thoughts on the game, I don't really even know if it's necessary because everyone played it at this point and seems to have enjoyed it. I know Kurt and John have enjoyed it especially. So I will start instead with John and ask you kind of your thoughts in general, things maybe you did like, things you didn't dislike. Or, excuse me, that was the same thing. Things you disliked, things you did like, and just leave it at that at the moment. We don't need necessarily a recommendation or anything at this point. We just kind of complaints, likes, pros, cons, whatever you got.
Okay. I just thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing. It was concise enough where it wasn't sticking around longer than it needed to. So I would just say, just in general, the whole game was just fantastic. The only thing I did not like was the very last mega flowy boss fight. So, but I guess my reprehensiveness to that is probably in line with the fact that it was messing up my recording I was trying to do. So, and then it closes the game. I'd say if I wasn't dealing with that, I would have probably been more okay with it. So, but yeah, that was the only complaint I had. Overall, fantastic game.
All right, Kurt, how about you?
I mean, I think this is a phenomenal game. I think the writing, the characters, the mechanics, the combat, the variety, it's the perfect length, I think. And there's replayability, and it's not just, oh, you can use a different build when you play it. It's legitimately changes a ton of things about how you approach the game and how things play out. And for me, this Undertale is, I would call it required reading. If you were into games and you haven't played Undertale, and I apologize if I'm jumping ahead to where you wanted to be, but I think it's such a master class in everything it tries to do that if you have any interest in the medium at all, then it's something that should be experienced.
Thank you for that, Joseph.
I love this game, and I've loved this game since it came out, since I first played it. One thing I don't think we've necessarily harped on enough is the music of this game, because the music is
good.
absolutely phenomenal. And it's on Spotify, and I listened to it a lot in college, and I've listened to it on the drives. The music of every boss fight, the music of all the areas, it's so atmospheric, and it makes it so much better. And that it's all composed by the same guy who wrote all the story and designed most of the characters in the game is just incredible. I love the variety of the characters. I love most of the areas of the game. I love how even there's like replayability because some things will be different regardless of what you do in your runs, which is something that I don't think we can talk about quite yet. But I guess before we do end it, I did want to mention my reasoning for killing Muffet was because the phone call that we talked about with Sans that you get after finishing the game, he will make a note of any major characters that you kill and like how it's influenced what happens in the like in the mountain with all the other monsters. And as I was going through it, I wanted to intentionally get a neutral run just for the sake of our recording. So I was like, all right, I need to kill somebody to make sure that I don't do anything wrong. So I killed the puppet at the very beginning, and then I killed Muffet later on. Apparently, Muffet does not count as a major character. She's just a mini boss, so Sans didn't say anything different to me. But
That's so
I was
weird to
already,
me.
yeah, far enough along. I was like, I think I want to kill. Like, I wish I had killed Papyrus because I thought that would have been really funny to see what Sans said. And then I was already past that point, so I was like, I'll just kill Muffet because I don't care about Muffet anymore. But still, the music is incredible, especially for her boss fight. I had forgotten how good it was.
I think you personally insulted Ryder at this point.
Yeah, he's really mad. To speak onto the music as well, the original soundtrack is amazing and it is on Spotify and it's good, just good listening. But they also did I just checked and it's a 5th anniversary orchestra concert
Mhm.
playing the tunes, and it's also fantastic. It's like I don't remember how long, at least an hour, and I just sat there and just listened to it one day a few years back during COVID, and it was just I couldn't imagine a better way to spend my time if you just have some time. Like, it's truly a magical soundtrack.
I didn't know about that. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, I love this game, and I love all the characters in this game and all the story behind it. And there's still a lot more story to come if we decide to go that way.
Mm-mm. Well, you're going too far ahead. So I thoroughly enjoyed this game as well. Um, there were a lot of things that I really liked about it. I think the writing is really its strongest. Well, no, I said it at the beginning. I'm gonna stick to it. The music is its strongest point. I think the music's just it's solid throughout. Because there are areas of the game, like I said, that dragged. I didn't really care for, but it's hard for me to point out any point that I was like, this music's kind of okay, or not really good, or bad, or no. At every point, I was like, this is really good music. Points where Larkin, my wife, is sitting in the background, and she was even like turning around and be like, "Ooh, that was fun," or like different like runs and like the notes that she was like, "Oh, that sounded really good," or like, "Ooh, I like that," or "What are you playing right now?" There's like I heard at least like 5 or 6 different times while I was playing this game during a 7 hour game comments about it, and I don't normally get that for music of a video game. I don't know if I'd listen to it casually, and I love listening to video game music, whether I'm at work or just cleaning the house or something like that, or driving. I'll put on. I love Minecraft music. That album is like I think my top 4 albums of all time based on the actual listing time. Stardew Valley, uh, any Final Fantasy game. I go on and on, but for some reason, this one just doesn't point out to me as something that I could casually listen to, despite the fact that I loved every bit of the soundtrack. I don't know why. Maybe that'll change, but the gameplay was the part that I actually liked the least. I enjoy the different ways you can interact with enemies and try to avoid conflict or engage with it. But despite the fact that I've told Joseph about it, I've been playing Enter the Gungeon. I think it's a lot of fun. That's technically a bullet hell. Other similar games, maybe you could throw Hades into that. Games where you have to, dodge enemy attacks. Not really in a pattern way, but just constant barrage of enemy attacks and stuff. It can be fun to me, but this was not. Um, the normal gameplay loop was almost infuriating to me. I did not enjoy it, and initially it was having to use the directional keys on a keyboard instead of WASD. Once I moved over to the controller, it was better, but it still was not fun to me at that point. At that point, I wasn't getting really frustrated the same way, but I didn't enjoy it. And I don't know. Maybe that's unpopular online. I actually don't know how people feel about it. But that was the only part I didn't like.
Yeah.
Opinion on Ryder's opinion. Let us know down in the comment section. Of course, after you've already liked and subscribed.
So yeah, Ryder, we can't post this video now. You know that, right?
That's fine. I don't know. I mean, if y'all like that part of it, then like, of course, let me know. But for some reason, I think there were boss fights that stood out, but the normal gameplay loop I did not like. Where there's
Sure.
like Muffet and Undyne, I really enjoyed because of the change on the traditional gameplay, and I guess also what's his face, Papyrus. But the rest, it just I don't know. Especially, oh my god. One sec, let me breathe, and then I'll move on from this point. But Metaton X was, I think it's just because that was the most bullet hell the game got at that point, for me at least, having to dodge attacks and stuff, and I just was not enjoying that. But anyways, other than that, I firmly enjoyed the game. I think the first half is better. I said that earlier. I think up through like Snowden and like Waterfall.
I agree with
Waterfall
that.
is where it begins to drag, but
Yeah, that's right.
the Hotlands and the core, Dr. Alphys, 100%, just like a nail through my temple, just starts like just dragging the game so much.
Yeah, that's definitely
Overall,
the weakest third of the game. I would agree.
Yeah.
And I'll stop because I don't want to go on and on. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. And now getting to the last little bit of this, would we recommend the game? I would say yes, but not to everyone. I think that this is a game that everyone could play because I think the difficulty is just right there. And as I was reading my research, that was the intentionality of the game, was that anyone could be able to pick up and play it. And as long as they had some form of reflexes, could see, use their thumb or something like that, they could probably beat the game. But I don't think everyone would enjoy it because of the same reason I didn't enjoy the gameplay loop. And, some people probably think it's just kind of stupid. I think it's really funny, well written. I think there's something anyone could find a value in here. But I would recommend particularly to anyone who is already just engaged with video games and video game culture. But I don't think your average video game player today would enjoy it. Well, maybe not find as much value in it, rather.
Right.
And anyone else can jump in.
Yeah, I think I'm going to push back against that because, like, if someone was, like, brand new to games and was like, what should I play? I could be wrong, but I feel like this would be a very approachable option because the difficulty's not too hard. You can kind of do it however you want. If you just want to go through and kill everything, then go through and kill everything. If you want to see quirky dialogue, go see quirky dialogue. If you want to explore, then explore, but you can also walk a pretty just straight path from beginning to end, and it's short enough that it's not this huge commitment, and it has enough, like it's new enough that it's not going to be like, it doesn't feel old. Like, some people say, oh, you need to play Mario World. It's like, well, Mario World, it's good, but it feels old. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like this is a very approachable game. And I don't have the issue with the gameplay that you do. Totally valid that you have those issues. But I would, like I said earlier, this is required reading for anyone interested in games at all. And I think it would be a great starting point for someone who's never really dipped their toes into it.
Pushing back on your pushback?
Sure. Let's go back and forth.
I think that's the only reason why I think you, as someone who's played video games your entire life, I would recommend it to anyone like the three of you.
Sure.
Or anyone like me who has played a variety of games, who is interested in video games in their entirety and expanding that. But when I think about video game culture now versus like even like 5 to 10 years ago, video games have become such a more common denominator between friend groups and stuff like that. And if you look at what the average person playing video games is playing today, it's Fortnite, it's Call of Duty, it's 2K, and like that's why I say like I can't recommend it to the average person. I think there's like a distinction there where like people who are like playing like a variety of things 100%. But like I think about all of my siblings with the exception of one. Out of the 5 of us, there's 2 of us who would enjoy this game. My brother-in-law plays video games quite a bit. He's played, recently Hogwarts Legacy. He's gotten his toes into Elden Ring a little bit, and I know for a fact he would hate this game. I think it's very, very different from anything that currently exists, and I think that would turn a lot of people off, despite the fact that that's the reasons why I think I enjoy it. Just because it is very different from the status quo, and it was intentionally made to be kind of satire of what we traditionally think of in video games.
Yeah, that's fair. Makes sense.
I would
But you
recommend
would
this
recommend
game.
it
Yeah, I would. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
to
all I got.
anybody
That's
or
all.
anybody.
I second everything that Kurt said, honestly. I feel like if you're going to play a game that's against the status quo, I think Undertale is a great way to do it.
Mhm.
But you're right, the majority of people are playing stuff like Fortnite. But there's still a huge variety of people that are playing stuff that isn't that, too.
But
Because, like, Undertale was successful on Steam, for example.
and I don't think the majority of people are playing Fortnite because or 2K or Call of Duty or are playing the popular games because they have made an active decision that they will not try any other games.
Mhm.
I just think those are the popular ones, those are the accessible ones, so those are the ones that other people are playing so that they have people to play with. I'm sure that there are people who, if they tried this, would not like it. But I think
You still recommend it to them, though.
I would still recommend it to them and say, and I don't know, I don't have any evidence to back this up. I just feel like more people would be for it than not if they like actually just sat down and tried it.
Gave it a chance.
Yeah, and I'm not saying everybody would give it a chance because I know that that's not true. That's true with anything that someone recommends, but I think that if they did, it is approachable and well executed enough to be a valuable and entertaining experience.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's good. It's very good, even.
It's good.
It's good.
That's our rating. It's good.
Press A, seal quality. Bam.
If you've somehow
Boom.
found our video, then you probably will enjoy this.
Yeah.
That's what I
If you
was
listen
thinking.
to us talk about this game for 3.5 hours, you will probably.
If I had to guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that said, I don't think we decided on our next game yet.
We have not. It'll be a surprise.
So we will see what it is. I think there's the potential for us to maybe replay this someday and discuss maybe a different playthrough if there's interest. It might just be me and Joseph, it might be others, who knows, in the far future. But for now, unless anyone else has anything else to say, that was our episode of Backlog Crew covering Undertale. Thanks, and I'll have a great day.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.